In the flickering glow of a grand chandelier, a priceless sapphire vanishes. Its curse whispered to claim lives. Hercule Poirot, the master detective, steps into a web of secrets at Ashford Manor, where every guest hides a motive of greed, revenge, or something darker. Was it the enigmatic diplomat seeking justice for a stolen relic? The disgraced jeweler with a score to settle? Or is the curse real, weaving death through the shadows? As lights fail and a cryptic note warns of doom, Poirot's little gray cells race against time. Who stole the sapphire star? And what deadly truth lies beneath its glittering surface? Unravel the mystery, where every clue twists toward a shocking end. Chapter 1. The glittering invitations. Late afternoon sun cast long golden fingers through the windows of Hercule Poirot's impeccably ordered London flat. The air was thick with the scent of polished wood and the faint tang of his preferred tisane, a delicate blend that soothed his senses as he sat at his mahogany desk. His small, precise hands were folded neatly over a letter, its cream-colored paper embossed with an elegant crest. The invitation, written in a flowing script, had arrived that morning, and Poirot had read it thrice already, his sharp gray eyes lingering on every word. Monsieur Hercule Poirot, it began, you are cordially invited to a gala at Ashford Manor, the ancestral home of Lady Evelyn Ashford, on the evening of the 15th of October. The occasion marks the unveiling of the Sapphire Star, a jewel of unparalleled beauty and storied history. Your presence would honor us greatly. Poirot's mustache twitched as he considered the name, the Sapphire Star. Even in his extensive travels, he had heard whispers of this gem of flawless sapphire, said to be the size of a quail's egg, with a radiant star at its heart that seemed to pulse with light. But the whispers carried darker tales, too. Tales of misfortune, of tragedy, of a curse that clung to the jewel like a shadow. Owners of the Sapphire Star, it was said, met untimely ends, bankruptcy, betrayal, or worse. Poirot, a man of reason, dismissed such superstitions, yet the stories intrigued him. Why unveil such a gem now? And why invite him, a detective, to a gala? He leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. Mon ami, he murmured to himself, this is no ordinary invitation. There is a puzzle here, and Hercule Poirot does not resist a puzzle. The decision was made. He would attend. Ashford Manor stood in the heart of the English countryside, a sprawling edifice of gray stone and ivy, its towers piercing the twilight sky like sentinels. As Poirot's car wound through the winding lanes of Kent, the manor came into view, its windows ablaze with light. The gravel drive crunched beneath the tires as the driver, a taciturn man hired for the occasion, brought the vehicle to a stop. Before the grand entrance, Poirot adjusted his bow tie, ensuring his appearance was as impeccable as ever, and stepped out, his polished shoes gleaming under the lanterns. A butler, stiff-backed and clad in black, greeted him at the door. Monsieur Poirot, welcome, he intoned, his voice as smooth as the marble floor beneath them. Lady Ashford awaits you in the grand hall. Poirot inclined his head, his eyes already scanning the surroundings. The foyer was a masterpiece of opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across gilded walls, and a sweeping staircase led to shadowed upper floors. Guests milled about, their laughter and conversation a lively hum. Women in shimmering gowns and men in tailored suits moved like players on a stage, each carrying an air of wealth or ambition. Poirot's gaze darted from face to face, cataloging expressions, gestures, the subtle tales of human nature. He was, after all, a student of the human condition, and tonight, he sensed, there would be much to study. Lady Evelyn Ashford emerged from the crowd, a vision in emerald silk, her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon. She was perhaps 60, but her posture and the fire in her eyes suggested a vitality that defied age. Monsieur Poirot, she exclaimed, extending a gloved hand, I am delighted you could join us. Your reputation precedes you. Poirot bowed, taking her hand with a flourish. Madam, the honor is mine. the Sapphire Star. It is a jewel most intriguing, n'est-ce pas? I am eager to behold it, her smile faltered. Just for a moment, and Poirot noted it a flicker of unease, quickly masked. Oh, it is magnificent, she said, her voice bright but strained. But come, let me introduce you to our guests. The unveiling will be the highlight of the evening. She led him through the throng, introducing him to a parade of notables. There was Sir Reginald Thorne, a portly industrialist with a booming laugh and a penchant for brandy, Miss Clara Vane, a young actress whose beauty was matched only by her sharp wit, Dr. Elias Moreau, a French archaeologist with a nervous habit of adjusting his spectacles, and Mr. Victor Harrow, the Manor's clockmaker, a gaunt man whose eyes seemed to see more than he spoke. Poirot noted each, his mind already weaving a tapestry of motives and secrets. The final introduction was to a man who stood apart, his dark eyes watchful beneath a mane of jet black hair. Monsieur Vikram Rao, Lady Ashford said, her tone formal, a diplomat from India, and a scholar of rare gems. Rao bowed, his smile polite but guarded. Monsieur Poirot, I have heard of your methods. I trust you will find tonight's festivities enlightening. Poirot's mustache twitched. Monsieur, I find all gatherings of humanity to be enlightening. The Sapphire Star, it has a history in your homeland, none. Rao's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. It does. A history both beautiful and tragic. Before Poirot could press further, a gong sounded, its deep resonance silencing the room. Lady Ashford clapped her hands. My dear guests, the moment has arrived. Please, follow me to the gallery for the unveiling of the Sapphire Star. The crowd surged forward, a tide of silk and anticipation, and Poirot allowed himself to be carried along, his senses alert. The gallery was a long, narrow room lined with portraits of Ashford ancestors, their painted eyes seeming to follow the guests. At the far end stood a pedestal draped in velvet, flanked by the footman in livery. Above it, a chandelier cast a soft glow, its light reflecting off a glass case that held nothing. Poirot's heart quickened. The case was empty. A murmur rippled through the crowd, growing into gasps as Lady Ashford reached the pedestal. No, she cried, her hands flying to her face. It's gone. At that moment, the chandelier flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. Shouts and screams erupted, a cacophony of panic. Poirot stood still, his mind racing, counting the seconds. 1, 2, 3. The lights returned, revealing chaos. Guests clutched at each other. Jewels glinted in disarray, and Lady Ashford stood frozen, her face pale as death. The Sapphire Star, she whispered, stolen. Poirot stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. Mesdames et messieurs, remain where you are. Hercule Poirot is here, and this crime, it will not go unsolved. The room fell silent, all eyes on the diminutive detective. He surveyed the scene, noting the disheveled guests, the overturned champagne flutes, the footmen's rigid postures. Somewhere in this chaos lay the truth, and he would find it. But first, he needed order. Madame Ashford, he said, turning to the hostess, please ensure no one leaves the manor. The thief is among us, and Hercule Poirot does not let such a one escape. She nodded, her composure returning. Of course, Monsieur Poirot, I trust you entirely. As the guests were ushered to the drawing room under the watchful eyes of the staff, Poirot approached the empty case. His fingers brushed the glass, noting its cool, unblemished surface. No signs of tampering, no forced entry. The lock was intact, a marvel of precision. This was no amateur's work. He turned his attention to the pedestal, where a small, folded piece of paper lay half hidden beneath the velvet cloth. He retrieved it with a handkerchief, unfolding it with care. Scrawled in hasty ink were the words, "The star's curse claims another. Return it, or all will fall." Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile, a clue and a challenge. The game, as he often called it, had begun. The drawing room was a hive of nervous energy as Poirot entered. his presence commanding attention despite his small stature. The guests sat in clusters, whispering, their eyes darting to him and then away. Lady Ashford stood by the fireplace, her hands clasped tightly, while the butler organized trays of tea to calm the rattled assembly. Poirot cleared his throat. Zamus, a crime has been committed, but fear not. Hercule Poirot has faced many such puzzles. And this one, it will be solved. I require your cooperation. No one shall leave until I have spoken with each of you. A murmur of protest rose, but Sir Reginald's booming voice cut through. See here, Poirot, I've got business in London tomorrow. You can't keep us prisoner. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Monsieur, a thief walks among us. Would you prefer they escape with your reputation as well as the gem? For surely suspicion falls on all. That silenced the room. Poirot began his interviews, starting with Lady Ashford. She led him to a private study, its walls lined with books and a single portrait of a stern-faced man in Regency attire. Monsieur Poirot, she began, her voice low, the sapphire star is more than a jewel. It is my family's legacy, but also its curse. My grandfather acquired it in India, under questionable circumstances. Every owner since has suffered. My father lost his fortune, my brother his life in a duel. I thought displaying it would break the cycle, prove the curse a myth. Poirot, listen, his head tilted. And yet, madam, you invited me. Why'd she hesitated? I heard rumors, threats, anonymous letters warning me not to show the gem. I thought your presence might deter mischief or attract it. Poirot said softly, tell me, who knew the gem would be unveiled tonight? Only my inner circle, she replied. The staff, the clockmaker, Mr. Harrow, who designed the case's mechanism, and a few trusted guests, Sir Reginald, Miss Vane, Dr. Moreau, and Mr. Rao. Poirot nodded, filing away the names and the case. It was secure, impenetrable, she said. Mr. Harrow swore it could only be opened with a key I kept on my person. 'Twas interesting, Poirot murmured. I will speak with this Harrow next. Asterisk. Victor Harrow was a weary man, his fingers stained with ink and oil, his eyes darting like a trapped animal's. Poirot found him in the Manor's workshop, surrounded by ticking clocks and gears. The air smelled of metal and dust. Monsieur Harrow, Poirot began, the case for the Sapphire Star. It was your creation. Harrow nodded, wiping his hands on a rag. Yes, sir. A marvel of engineering. No one could open it without the key. And yet, Poirot said, his tone mild, the gem is gone. How do you explain this? Harrow's face paled. I don't know. I checked the mechanism this morning. It was perfect. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Monsieur, perfection is rare, and thieves are clever. Tell me, did you see anyone near the case before the unveiling? Harrow hesitated, then muttered, I saw Mr. Rao lingering in the gallery earlier. He seemed curious about the case. Merci, Poirot said, dismissing him. Rao, the diplomat, was next. Vikram Rao stood by a window, his silhouette sharp against the moonlight. His calm demeanor contrasted with the room's tension, but Poirot sensed a guardedness beneath it. Monsieur Rao, Poirot said, you know of the Sapphire Star's history. Tell me, what is its significance to you? Rao's smile was thin. It is a relic of my country, Monsieur Poirot, taken by force, like so many treasures. Its return would mean much to my people. And would you steal it to achieve that? Poirot asked, his voice deceptively soft. Rao's eyes flashed. I am no thief, but I will not deny I wish the gem restored to its rightful place. Poirot nodded, letting the man go. Each interview added a piece to the puzzle, but the picture remained incomplete. He moved on to Miss Vane, whose flirtatious smile did little to hide her sharp intelligence, and Dr. Moreau, whose nervous tics suggested more than academic curiosity. Sir Reginald, meanwhile, blustered about his innocence, his face red with indignation. As the night deepened, Poirot returned to the gallery. now empty save for the footman guarding the doors. He examined the pedestal again, his fingers tracing the velvet. The note's words echoed in his mind. Return it, or all will fall. A threat, or a warning. And why leave it at all? A faint sound caught his ear, a creak, barely audible, from the wall behind the pedestal. He pressed his hand against the panel, and it shifted, revealing a narrow passageway. Dust motes danced in the dim light, and footprints marked the floor, fresh and deliberate. Poirot's heart quickened. Mon Dieu, he whispered, the thief has left a trail. He followed the passage, his steps silent, until it opened into a small chamber beneath the manor. There, on a rough table, lay a single sapphire fragment, its edges jagged, as if torn from a larger whole. Beside it was a scrap of cloth, embroidered with a symbol, a crescent moon entwined with a star. Poirot pocketed both, his mind racing. The sapphire star was not merely stolen. It was part of a larger scheme, one that reached beyond the manor's walls. The night's chaos was a distraction. But for what purpose? And who among the guests or the staff knew of this hidden place? He emerged into the gallery, the fragment and cloth safely hidden in his pocket. The guests were still in the drawing room, their voices a low murmur. Poirot straightened his tie, his resolve firm. The thief was clever, but Hercule Poirot was clever still. Died as he rejoined the others. Lady Ashford approached, her eyes wide. Monsieur Poirot, have you found anything? He smiled, his mustache curling. Madam, I have found a beginning. The sapphire star is not lost, not yet. But the night is young, and the truth, it will reveal itself. The chapter closed with Poirot standing at the center of the drawing room, his gaze sweeping over the assembled guests. Each face held a secret, each gesture a clue. The curse of the sapphire star was a tale of greed and deception, and Poirot was determined to unravel it, one thread at a time. Chapter 2. Shadows of Suspicion. The grand hall of Ashford Manor, so recently alive with the clinking of champagne flutes and the murmur of polite conversation, now stood in disarray. The chandeliers, their golden light dimmed by the sudden blackout that had cloaked the theft of the sapphire star, flickered back to life, casting long shadows across the marble floor. Guests milled about, their faces a mixture of shock, indignation, and thinly veiled curiosity. The air was thick with whispers, each more speculative than the last, as the reality of the crime settled over the gathering. Like a fog, Hercule Poirot stood near the center of the room, his small, precise figure a calm anchor amidst the chaos. His mustache twitched slightly as he surveyed the scene, his sharp green eyes darting from one guest to another, taking in every gesture, every glance. The sapphire star, a gem of unparalleled beauty and rumored malevolence, had vanished from its velvet pedestal during the blackout, and Poirot knew that the key to its recovery lay not in the physical evidence alone, but in the minds and motives of those present. Mon Dieu, he murmured to himself, adjusting his pristine white gloves. A theft so bold, so meticulously planned, requires not only audacity, but intelligence, and yet the thief remains among us, hidden in plain sight. Captain Arthur Hastings, Poirot's loyal friend and occasional confidant, stood at his side, his brow furrowed with concern. I say, Poirot, this is a dash bad business. That gem must be worth a fortune, and now it's gone. Do you think it's the curse at work? Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. The curse, mon ami, a charming story, perhaps, to frighten the superstitious. But Hercule Poirot deals in facts, not fables. The sapphire star was taken by human hands, and those hands belonged to someone. In this room, now, let us proceed with method. He turned his attention to Lady Evelyn Ashford, the hostess of the gala, who stood near the pedestal, her elegant silk gown trembling slightly as she clutched a glass of sherry. Her face, though powdered and composed, betrayed a flicker of fear. Poirot approached her with a polite bow. Madam, he began, his voice smooth and measured. This is a most unfortunate event. might I trouble you to recount the history of this remarkable gem? Its past may illuminate the present." Lady Ashford's eyes widened, and she took a sip of her sherry before responding. "Monsieur Poirot, I hardly know where to begin. The sapphire star has been in my family for generations, passed down from my great-grandfather, who acquired it during his travels in India. It is said to have been taken from a sacred temple, and with it came a curse that has brought tragedy to every owner since." "Tragedy?" Poirot's eyebrows arched. "Of what nature, if I may ask?" She hesitated, her gaze drifting to the empty pedestal. "My great-grandfather died in a carriage accident shortly after acquiring it. His son, my grandfather, lost his fortune in a series of ill-fated investments. My own father, he took his own life after years of misfortune. And now, this theft. I fear the curse has struck again." Poirot nodded thoughtfully, his fingers stroking his mustache. "A most intriguing tale, madam. But tell me, who among your guests knew of the gem's value and its reputation?" Lady Ashford's lips tightened. "All of them, I suppose. I made no secret of the sapphire star's history. It was to be the highlight of the evening, a chance to display its beauty before it was to be locked away in a vault. But I never imagined." Her voice broke, and she turned away. Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was already at work, cataloging the guests. There were 30 in all, a mix of aristocrats, artists, and adventurers, each with their own reasons for attending. He had already begun to narrow his focus to a handful whose behavior during the blackout had piqued his interest. "Hastings," he said quietly, "fetch me the guest list, if you please, and keep your eyes open for anything out of the ordinary." Hastings nodded and hurried off, leaving Poirot to circulate among the guests. His first stop was Mr. Reginald Thorne, a disgraced jeweler whose once thriving business had collapsed amid rumors of fraud. Thorne stood alone by a window, his thin frame hunched, his fingers nervously twisting a silver cigarette case. His eyes, darting about the room, met Poirot's with a flicker of unease. "Mr. Thorne," Poirot said, his tone polite but probing, "you are a man of expertise in gems, are you not? What did you make of the sapphire star?" Thorne's lips twitched into a strained smile. "A magnificent piece, Monsieur Poirot, flawless clarity. A deep blue that rivals the finest sapphires of Ceylon. Worth a king's ransom, I'd wager. But cursed. I don't hold with such nonsense." Indeed, Poirot's eyes gleamed, and yet, a gem of such value might tempt even the most rational man. "Where were you when the lights went out?" Thorne stiffened. "I was near the refreshment table, speaking with Miss Carver. I didn't see anything unusual. The blackout happened so quickly, you know." Poirot nodded. Filing away Thorne's response, he moved on to Miss Eleanor Carver, a young heiress with a penchant for adventure and a reputation for recklessness. She stood by the fireplace, her auburn hair catching the light, her expression one of barely concealed excitement. "Mademoiselle Carver," Poirot said, bowing slightly, "you seem less perturbed by this theft than one might expect. May I ask?" White Eleanor laughed, a bright, tinkling sound. "Oh, Monsieur Poirot, it's all so thrilling, isn't it? A stolen gem, a curse, a mystery. I was by the orchestra when the lights went out, trying to convince that stuffy violinist to play something lively. I didn't see a thing, but I wish I had." Her enthusiasm was genuine, but Poirot noted the way her eyes flickered toward Thorne, who was now watching her from across the room. A connection, perhaps. He made a mental note to explore it further. Next, he approached Monsieur André Duval, a French diplomat with a reputation for secrecy and a rumored interest in rare artifacts. Duval stood near a tapestry, his dark eyes scanning the room with a predator's focus. His tailored suit and polished demeanor marked him as a man of means, but his guarded expression suggested hidden motives. "Monsieur Duval," Poirot said, "you have traveled widely, I understand. Have you encountered tales of gems like the sapphire star before?" Duval's smile was thin. "Many times, Monsieur Poirot. Every culture has its legends of cursed jewels. But I am a man of diplomacy, not superstition. I was near Lady Ashford when the lights failed, offering my condolences for her recent loss. A most unfortunate moment for a theft. Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly. Duval's alibi was convenient, but his interest in the gem was evident. There was something in his tone, a hint of knowledge withheld, that set Poirot's instincts alight. His next suspect was Mrs. Beatrice Langley, a widow whose late husband had been a rival of Lady Ashford's father. Mrs. Langley sat in a corner, her black lace gown a stark contrast to the vibrant crowd. Her eyes, the red rim, were sharp with calculation. Mrs. Langley, Poirot said gently, this theft must be distressing for you, given your family's history with the Ashfords. She looked up, her gaze piercing. Distressing? Hardly. The Ashfords have flaunted their wealth for too long. The gem brought them nothing but misery, and now it's gone. Perhaps justice has been served. Her words carried a venom that intrigued Poirot. Revenge was a powerful motive, and Mrs. Langley's bitterness was palpable. He made a note to investigate her further. Finally, he approached Mr. Julian Marsh, a charismatic actor known for his roles in Gothic dramas. Marsh leaned against a pillar, his handsome face alight with a mischievous grin as he entertained a small group of admirers. His theatrical flair made him a natural suspect in a crime so dramatically executed. Mr. Marsh, Poirot said, interrupting the actor's tale, your presence adds a certain drama to this evening. Where were you when the Sapphire Star vanished? Marsh laughed, his voice rich and warm. Monsieur Poirot, you wound me. I was merely entertaining my fellow guests near the balcony. The blackout was a shock, but I confess, it's rather exciting, don't you think? A real-life mystery. Poirot smiled faintly. Marsh's charm was disarming, but his proximity to the balcony, a potential escape route, did not escape notice. As Poirot concluded his initial inquiries, Hastings returned with the guest list, his face flushed with excitement. Poirot, I've got it. And I overheard something odd. The footmen were whispering about a strange noise in the east wing. Just before the blackout, sounded like a door creaking, they said. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Excellent, Hastings. A noise. Door, small details, but they may lead us to the truth. Come, let us examine the scene of the crime. They approached the pedestal where the Sapphire Star had been displayed, now surrounded by a velvet rope and guarded by a stern-faced butler. The pedestal itself was unremarkable, a simple column of polished mahogany. But Poirot's attention was drawn to the floor beneath it. He knelt, his gloved fingers brushing the marble, and his eyes narrowed as he spotted a faint smudge of dirt. Curious, he murmured. This dirt is fresh, and it does not match the polished cleanliness of this floor. Someone has been here, someone careless. He stood and scanned the room, his gaze settling on a tapestry near the pedestal. It depicted a medieval hunt, its colors vibrant despite its age. Poirot stepped closer, his fingers tracing the edge of the fabric. With a gentle tug, he revealed a concealed panel in the wall, barely visible to the untrained eye. Hastings, he called softly, regard as a hidden passageway. Hastings gasped as Poirot pressed the panel, which slid open with a soft click, revealing a narrow corridor shrouded in darkness. The air within was musty, and a faint draft carried the scent of damp stone. This, Poirot said, is how our thief escaped. But to where, and why leave such a clue as this dirt? Before they could explore further, a scream echoed from the far end of the hall. Guests turned, their faces pale, as Lady Ashford rushed toward Poirot, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. Monsieur Poirot, she cried. This was found near the pedestal, slipped under a table. I fear it's a threat. Poirot took the note, his eyes scanning the elegant, slanted handwriting. It read, "The star will shine no more. Its curse claims all who covet it." He folded the note carefully, his mind racing. A theatrical touch. He said, "Our thief wishes to frighten us, to distract us, But Hercule Poirot is not so easily swayed. He turned to Lady Ashford. "Madam, secure this manor. No one leaves until I have spoken with them all. Hastings, gather the staff. We must learn who had access to this passageway and when." As Hastings hurried off, Poirot returned to the passageway, his flashlight illuminating the stone walls. The corridor stretched into darkness, its path twisting out of sight. He stepped inside, his footsteps echoing softly, and soon discovered a small alcove containing a single item, a broken pocket watch, its hands frozen at the exact time of the blackout. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered. "The plot thickens. This watch, this passageway, this note, they are pieces of a puzzle, and Hercule Poirot will assemble them all over the next hours." Poirot interviewed the manor staff, from the butler to the scullery maids, each offering fragments of information. The footman confirmed Hastings' report of a creaking door, and one maid recalled seeing a cloaked figure near the east wing earlier that evening. Poirot's questions were precise, his demeanor calm, but relentless. As he pieced together a timeline of events. By midnight, he had narrowed his suspects to 5. Reginald Thorne, whose expertise in gems made him a prime candidate; Eleanor Carver, whose reckless nature and connection to Thorne raised questions; Andre Duval, whose secretive demeanor hinted at deeper motives; Beatrice Langley, whose bitterness suggested a vendetta; and Julian Marsh, whose theatrical flair and proximity to an escape route were suspicious. As the guests retired to their rooms under the watchful eyes of the manor staff, Poirot sat by the fire in the drawing room, his notebook open before him. He sketched a diagram of the hall, marking the pedestal, the tapestry, and the hidden passageway. The dirt, the note, the watch all pointed to a crime planned with meticulous care, yet executed with a touch of recklessness. "Hastings," he said as his friend joined him, "this theft is not merely about the Sapphire Star. It is a game, a challenge laid before us. The thief wishes to outwit us, to prove their cleverness. But they have underestimated Hercule Poirot." Hastings yawned, rubbing his eyes. "I don't know how you do it, Poirot. All these clues, all these people, it's enough to make one's head spin. Do you really think you'll catch the thief?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Mon ami, I do not think I know. The little gray cells, they are already at work. By tomorrow, we shall follow this passageway to its end, and I suspect it will lead us not only to the thief but to the heart of this mystery." He leaned back, sipping a tisane prepared by the butler, and closed his eyes. The fire crackled, casting shadows on the walls, and in Poirot's mind, the pieces of the puzzle began to align, each clue a step closer to the truth. Chapter 3. The Clockmaker's Secretive. Morning after the gala, Ashford Manor was cloaked in an uneasy hush, as though the walls themselves held their breath, awaiting the next ripple of chaos. Hercule Poirot stood in the grand foyer, his polished shoes clicking softly against the marble floor, as he surveyed the scene of the previous night's crime. The chandelier above, its crystals dulled by daylight, hung like a silent witness to the theft of the Sapphire Star. The guests, still shaken, lingered in clusters, their whispered conversations buzzing like flies trapped in a jar. Poirot's mustache twitched slightly, a sign of his mind at work, sifting through the chaos to find the thread of order. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever the loyal companion, stood at Poirot's side, his notebook open and his pencil poised. "Quite a mess, isn't it, Poirot?" he said, his voice tinged with the nervous energy of a man unaccustomed to such brazen crimes. "A blackout, a stolen gem, and not a single witness who saw anything useful. Where do we even begin?" Poirot's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, flicked toward Hastings. "Begin, mon ami? We begin the moment the lights went out. The crime. It is not merely the theft of a jewel, it is a performance, a carefully orchestrated act. And the stage, Hastings, is this manor. We must examine its players, its props, and its hidden corners. Come, we start with the clock." Hastings blinked, confused. "The clock? You mean that enormous thing in the ballroom? What's it got to do with anything? Poirot did not answer immediately. Instead, he glided toward the ballroom, his small frame moving with the precision of a metronome. The ballroom was still in disarray, tables askew, glasses overturned, and the faint scent of spilled champagne lingering in the air. At the far end stood the object of Poirot's interest, an ornate grandfather clock, its mahogany case gleaming under the morning light filtering through the tall windows. The clock's face was a masterpiece of craftsmanship, its hands frozen at precisely 9:47, the exact moment the lights had failed, and the sapphire star vanished. This clock, Hastings, Poirot said, tapping the glass gently, is no mere decoration. It is a sentinel, a keeper of secrets. Why does it stop at the precise moment of the theft? A coincidence? None. Poirot does not believe in coincidences. We must speak to its maker. The clockmaker, Mr. Edwin Harrow, was not among the glittering guests of the gala. He was a reclusive figure, a man whose name was whispered in the manor's staff quarters with a mix of awe and unease. Lady Evelyn Ashford, when questioned earlier that morning, had described him as a genius with gears but a nervous wreck with people. He has been with the family for years, she had said, her voice trembling slightly. He crafted the clock for my late husband's 50th birthday. It's one of a kind, Monsieur Poirot. But I can't imagine what it has to do with the theft. Poirot, however, was not so easily swayed by assurances. He had requested Harrow's presence, and now, as he and Hastings approached the clockmaker's workshop in the manor's east wing, Poirot's mind was already turning over possibilities. The workshop was tucked behind a heavy oak door, its surface scarred with years of use. A faint ticking sound emanated from within, like the heartbeat of some mechanical beast. Poirot knocked sharply, and after a moment, the door creaked open to reveal Edwin Harrow. He was a weary man in his late 50s, with thinning hair and spectacles that magnified his anxious eyes. His hands, stained with oil and flecked with tiny gears, trembled slightly as he gestured for them to enter. Monsieur Poirot, he said, his voice high and unsteady. I wasn't expecting visitors. The clock, is it malfunctioning? Poirot's smile was polite but piercing. The clock, Monsieur Harrow, is most intriguing. It stopped, you see, at the precise moment the sapphire star was stolen. A curious thing, non? Perhaps you can enlighten us as to why. Harrow's face paled, and he fumbled with a rag, wiping his hands repeatedly. Stopped though, dear. That shouldn't happen. It's a precision piece, you see, designed to run for years without fault. Perhaps the mechanism was jarred during the blackout. Jarring, you say. Poirot's tone was mild, but his eyes were unrelenting. And yet, the clock stands firm, untouched by the chaos of last night. Tell me, Monsieur Harrow, did you attend the gala? Harrow shook his head vigorously. No. I'm not one for crowds. I was here, in my workshop, working on some repairs. Poirot repeated, his gaze sweeping the cluttered workshop. It was a labyrinth of gears, springs, and half-assembled timepieces, each ticking in its own rhythm. A workbench in the corner held a partially disassembled pocket watch, its tiny components glinting under a single lamp. And what, precisely, were you repairing at the hour of 9:47? Harrow's hands froze mid-wipe. I don't recall the exact time. I was focused. You see, clocks demand focus. Indeed they do, Poirot said, stepping closer to the workbench. His fingers brushed lightly over a small screwdriver, then paused at a pile of papers covered in intricate diagrams. And this clock, this masterpiece in the ballroom, what secrets does it hold? You crafted it, did you not? A man of your skill would know every gear, every spring. Tell me, Monsieur Harrow, does it contain compartments? Harrow's eyes widened, and for a moment, Poirot thought the man might bolt. But the clockmaker merely stammered, compartments? No, it's just a clock, Monsieur Poirot. A beautiful clock, but nothing more. Hastings, Sensing the tension, interjected, "Look here, Harrow, if you know something, you'd better speak up. A priceless gem's been stolen, and people are talking about curses and all sorts of nonsense. If the clock's involved, curses." Harrow's voice rose, almost a squeak. "There's no curse, Captain Hastings. It's just a story, a silly story. The clock, it's just a clock." Poirot raised a hand, silencing Hastings. "Calm yourself, Monsieur Harrow. Let us examine this clock of yours. Perhaps it will speak where you do not." The trio returned to the ballroom, where the grandfather clock stood like a silent monarch. Poirot circled it, his eyes tracing every curve of its carved exterior, every glint of its polished brass. He tapped the glass face, then ran his fingers along the sides, pausing at a faint seam near the base. "Hastings," he said softly, "fetch a small tool, a screwdriver. Perhaps from Monsieur Harrow's workshop." Harrow protested, but Hastings was already gone. Returning moments later with a slender tool, Poirot knelt, his movements precise, and inserted the screwdriver into the seam. With a gentle twist, a panel clicked open, revealing a hidden compartment no larger than a cigar box. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a single fragment of sapphire, its deep blue catching the light like a trapped star. Harrow gasped, stumbling back. "I didn't know. I swear, I didn't put that there." Poirot held the fragment up, his expression unreadable. "And yet, here it is. A piece of the sapphire star, or perhaps a clever imitation. Tell me, Monsieur Harrow, who had access to this clock before the gala?" Harrow's hands twisted the rag into knots. "Only me, and Lady Ashford, of course. She oversaw the preparations, and the staff. They cleaned the ballroom. But they wouldn't touch the clock. It's delicate, you see." "Delicate, indeed," Poirot murmured, slipping the sapphire fragment into a small envelope. "Hastings, we must speak to Lady Ashford again, and we must learn who else might have known of this compartment." As they left the ballroom, Harrow trailing behind like a reluctant shadow, Poirot's mind was racing. The clock stopped hands, the hidden compartment, the sapphire fragment. They were pieces of a puzzle, each fitting into a larger design. But what was the design? A theft for profit, or something deeper, tied to the whispers of the curse? Lady Ashford was in her private drawing room, a cup of tea untouched before her. Her face, usually composed, was etched with worry. "Monsieur Poirot," she said as they entered, "have you found anything? The guests are restless, and the police are useless. They're talking about searching everyone's rooms. But I can't have that kind of scandal." Poirot bowed slightly. "Madam, we have found something most curious." He produced the envelope and tipped the sapphire fragment onto the table. Lady Ashford's eyes widened, her hand flying to her throat. "Is that a fragment, perhaps, of the sapphire star?" Poirot said. "Found in a hidden compartment in your clock. Tell me, madam, who knew of this compartment?" Lady Ashford shook her head, her pearls clicking softly. "No one. Edwin Mr. Harrow built that clock years ago. If there's a compartment, he never told me. I swear, Monsieur Poirot, I had no idea." Poirot's gaze lingered on her, searching for the flicker of deceit, but her distress seemed genuine. "Very well," he said, "but we must consider the timing." The clock stopped at 9:47, the moment of the blackout. "This was no accident, madam. Someone knew the clock's secrets and used them to their advantage." Hastings, flipping through his notebook, spoke up. "There's something else, Poirot. That note we found near the display case, 'The star falls when time stands still.' It's got to be connected to the clock, don't you think?" Poirot nodded, his eyes gleaming. "Precisement, Hastings. The note, the clock, the blackout, they are all part of the same performance. And Monsieur Harrow, I think, has more to tell us." Back in the workshop, Harrow was a bundle of nerves, his hands shaking as he sorted through a tray of gears. Poirot stood before him, his presence commanding despite his small stature. "Monsieur Harrow," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "You spoke of time being the key. What did you mean?" Harrow's eyes darted to the door, as if expecting rescue. I didn't mean anything. Just a figure of speech. Clocks. You know, they're all about time. Poirot stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Do not play games. With Hercule Poirot, you crafted this clock. You knew its secrets. And you were in this workshop when the theft occurred. If you are not the thief, then you are protecting someone. Who is it?" Harrow's knees buckled, and he sank onto a stool. "I didn't steal it," he whispered. But I might have helped. Without knowing, a few weeks ago, someone came to me, a man. He didn't give his name. He asked about the clock, said he was a collector of rare mechanisms. He wanted to know if it had special features. I told him about the compartment. I thought it was harmless, just a curiosity." Poirot's mustache twitched. "And this man, what did he look like?" Harrow swallowed hard. "Tall, dark hair, a scar on his left cheek. He had an accent, foreign, maybe Eastern European. He paid me to keep quiet about our talk. I needed the money, Monsieur Poirot. The manor doesn't pay what it used to." Poirot exchanged a glance with Hastings. The description matched none of the guests, but it hinted at an outsider, someone working in the shadows. "And this man," Poirot pressed, "did he ask about the Sapphire Star?" Harrow nodded miserably. He knew about it, said it was a shame such a gem was locked away. I didn't know he'd steal it." Poirot stepped back, his mind assembling the pieces. The clock, the compartment, the note. The mysterious stranger all pointed to a plan far more intricate than a simple theft. But why the sapphire fragment? Was it a decoy, or part of the gem itself? And what of the curse? The whispers of tragedy that clung to the sapphire star like dust. "Hastings," Poirot said, turning to his friend, "we must examine the guest list again. This man with the scar, he may have been here, disguised. Or he may have an accomplice among the guests. And we must learn more about this clock. Monsieur Harrow, you will show us every blueprint, every note you have on its construction." Harrow nodded, his face ashen, and began pulling papers from a locked drawer. As he did, Poirot's gaze fell on a small, leather-bound notebook tucked among the diagrams. He reached for it, ignoring Harrow's feeble protest, and flipped it open. The pages were filled with sketches of the clock, but one drawing stood out, a detailed rendering of the hidden compartment, with a single phrase scrawled beneath it, "Time is the key." Poirot closed the notebook, his expression unreadable. "Monsieur Harrow, you will remain here, under the watchful eye of the staff. Hastings, come. We have work to do." As they left the workshop, the ticking of the clock seemed to grow louder, a reminder that time was indeed the key and it was running out. Poirot's mind was a whirl of possibilities, each more intricate than the last. The sapphire fragment, the stop clock, the mysterious stranger, they were all threads in a tapestry of deceit, and Poirot was determined to unravel it before the thief struck again. The day wore on, with Poirot and Hastings poring over the guest list, questioning servants, and examining every inch of the ballroom. The 5 suspects Poirot had identified the previous night remained at the forefront of his mind. The disgraced jeweler, Mr. Reginald Thorne, whose career had crumbled after a scandal involving fake gems. The foreign diplomat, Count Victor Dragomir, whose guarded demeanor had a sharp intelligence, Miss Clara Beaumont. A young heiress with a penchant for risky investments, Mr. Percival Langston. A rival collector with a grudge against Lady Ashford, and Mrs. Eleanor Vance, a widow whose late husband had once owned the Sapphire Star. Each had a motive, but none had an airtight alibi. By late afternoon, Poirot returned to the clock, this time with a magnifying glass borrowed from Harrow's workshop. He examined the mechanism behind the glass face, his fingers deftly probing for irregularities. "Hastings," he said, "observe the gears. They are pristine, untouched by dust. This clock was serviced recently, perhaps too recently." Hastings frowned. "You think someone tampered with it before the gala?" "Precisement," Poirot said. The blackout, the stop clock, they were not accidents. Someone ensured the clock would stop at 9:47, drawing attention to it, perhaps to distract from the theft itself. But why leave the sapphire fragment, a mistake or a message, as the sun dipped below the horizon? Casting long shadows across the manor, Poirot's investigation took a new turn. A maid, trembling with fear, approached him in the hallway. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "I found something in the ballroom, behind the curtains. I didn't know what to do with it." She handed him a small, folded piece of paper. Poirot unfolded it carefully, revealing a single sentence written in a hurried scrawl. "The star's light dims, but its shadow grows." Beside the words was a crude sketch of a clock, its hands pointing to 9:47. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Merci, mademoiselle. You have done well. Hastings, we must return to the ballroom at once." The ballroom was quiet now, the chaos of the gala replaced by an eerie stillness. Poirot moved to the curtains where the note had been found, his magnifying glass sweeping over the fabric. A faint smudge of oil caught his eye, barely visible against the heavy velvet. "Oil, Hastings," he said, "the kind used in clock mechanisms. Our thief is careless, or perhaps they wish to be found." The day's discoveries swirled in Poirot's mind. The sapphire fragment, the stopped clock, the mysterious stranger, the cryptic notes. Each was a piece of the puzzle, but the picture remained incomplete. As night fell, Poirot sat in the manor's drawing room, a cup of tisane in hand, his little gray cells working tirelessly. The theft was no simple act of greed, it was a performance, a dance of deception, and the clock was at its heart. "Hastings," he said at last, "tomorrow we will explore the manor's history. The Sapphire Star has a past, and so does this house. We must find where they intersect. For now, we rest, but not for long. The thief is still here, and they will not wait for us to catch up." As Hastings nodded, his eyes heavy with fatigue, Poirot sipped his tisane, his mind alight with the thrill of the chase. The clockmaker's secret had been revealed, but it was only the beginning. The Sapphire Star was out there, its cursor, its illusion still casting shadows over Ashford Manor, and Hercule Poirot would not rest until every shadow was brought to light. Chapter 4. Whispers in the library. Hercule Poirot adjusted his impeccable mustache as he stepped into the cavernous library of Ashford Manor, his polished shoes clicking softly against the polished oak floor. The air was thick with the scent of aged leather and dust, a testament to the countless volumes lining the towering shelves that stretched toward the vaulted ceiling. The morning light filtered through tall, arched windows, casting golden streaks across the room, illuminating motes of dust that danced like tiny specters. Captain Hastings trailed behind, his brow furrowed with a mixture of awe and apprehension, clutching his notebook as if it were a shield against the mysteries that lay ahead. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice low but resonant in the quiet space. "A library is not merely a repository of books. It is a labyrinth of secrets, where the past whispers to those who listen, and today we shall listen most attentively." Hastings nodded, though his eyes darted nervously to the shadowed corners of the room. "I say, Poirot, this place gives me the creeps. All these old books, and that business about the Sapphire Star Curse. Do you really think we'll find something here?" Poirot's eyes twinkled with that familiar spark of intellectual delight. "The mind, Hastings, is like a garden. It must be tended, and here, among these pages, we shall find the seeds of truth. The Sapphire Star, it has a history, and history, it is written down. We seek the story of this gem, and perhaps the story of its thief." The theft of the Sapphire Star during the gala 2 nights prior had left Ashford Manor in a state of disarray. Lady Evelyn Ashford, the manor's formidable mistress, had revealed the gem's grim legacy, a trail of misfortune that had claimed every owner since its discovery in a distant Indian temple centuries ago. The cryptic note found near the crime scene, "The star will burn until it returns," had only deepened the enigma. Poirot, with his unerring instinct for the unusual, had deduced that the note pointed to a purpose beyond mere theft. A hidden passageway discovered in the manor's grand hall had further convinced him that the answers lay within the estate's ancient walls. The library was a logical starting point. Its shelves, groaning under the weight of centuries-old tomes, promised insights into the manor's history and, perhaps, the Sapphire Star itself. Poirot moved with purpose, his small frame navigating the narrow aisles with the precision of a dancer. He paused before a section labeled historical accounts, his gloved fingers tracing the spines of leather-bound volumes. "Hastings," he called softly, "assist me. We seek anything related to the Ashford family, the manor, or the gems. Origins. Be methodical, mon ami. The truth hides in the details." Hastings, ever eager to please, began pulling books from the shelves, stacking them on a nearby mahogany table. "Right, Poirot. But there must be thousands of books here. Where do we even start?" "With patience," Poirot replied, already engrossed in a faded volume titled Chronicles of Ashford Manor, the library. "It is like a puzzle. Each book is a piece, and we must find those that fit." For hours, they pored over dusty manuscripts, their fingers smudged with ink and their minds racing with fragments of history. The library was a treasure trove of knowledge, but also a maze of irrelevant anecdotes and genealogies. Poirot's focus remained unshakable, his eyes scanning pages with the intensity of a hawk. Hastings, meanwhile, grew increasingly restless, muttering about the lack of modern conveniences like a proper index. "Poirot, this is hopeless," Hastings said at last, slumping into a chair. "We've got family trees, land deeds, and some nonsense about a ghost in the West Wing. Nothing about the Sapphire Star." Poirot closed his book with a deliberate snap. "None, Hastings. We have found something. This chronicle mentions a visitor to the manor in 1783, a merchant from Calcutta. He gifted a blue jewel of great renown to Lord Reginald Ashford. The description matches our Sapphire Star. But there is more. A footnote speaks of a sacred trust broken. We must find what this trust entails." Energized by the discovery, Poirot directed Hastings to a section of the library dedicated to travelogues and foreign histories. There, among brittle pages and faded maps, they uncovered a journal bound in cracked leather, its title embossed in gold: "Travels in the East, 1779 to 1784. The author, a Captain Mortimer Blake, had journeyed through India, documenting temples, tribes, and treasures." Poirot's eyes gleamed as he turned to a passage marked with a faded ribbon. "Listen, Hastings," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "In the hills of Rajputana, I came upon a temple, hidden in a valley of shadow. The priest spoke of a sapphire, the Star of Kali, guarded by an order sworn to its protection. They claimed it held the goddess's wrath, a curse upon those who would steal it from its rightful place." Hastings leaned forward, his earlier fatigue forgotten. "The Star of Kali. That must be our Sapphire Star. But how did it end up here?" Poirot's lips curled into a faint smile. "That, mon ami, is the question." The journal continues, "A thief, a man of no honor, took the gem in the night. The priest vowed to reclaim it, no matter the cost. This temple, this order, they are the key. The note we found, it speaks of returning the star. Perhaps our thief is not motivated by greed, but by duty." The discovery electrified the investigation. Poirot's mind raced, piecing together the implications. The Sapphire Star was no ordinary jewel. It was a sacred relic, its theft from the Temple of Violation that had sparked a centuries-long quest for restitution. The cryptic note now made sense. It was not a taunt, but a declaration of intent. The thief, or their employer, sought to return the gem to its origins. As Poirot and Hastings delved deeper into the journal, they were interrupted by a soft creak from the far end of the library. The sound was subtle, but to Poirot's attuned senses, it was as loud as a gunshot. He held up a hand, silencing Hastings. and peered into the shadows. The library's high shelves created a warren of alcoves, perfect for concealment. Poirot's instincts told him they were not alone. "Stay here, Hastings," he whispered, moving silently toward the source of the noise. His small frame slipped between the shelves, his eyes scanning for movement. The library seemed to hold its breath. The only sound the faint rustle of his coat. Then, a flicker of motion, a figure in dark clothing darted behind a bookcase. Poirot quickened his pace. His heart steadied despite the thrill of the chase. He reached the bookcase and found it slightly ajar, revealing a hidden panel. Beyond it lay a narrow passage, its walls lined with damp stone. The air was cool and musty, carrying the scent of earth and secrets. Poirot hesitated only a moment before stepping inside, his curiosity outweighing caution. The passage twisted through the manor's foundations, its walls etched with faded symbols that Poirot recognized as Sanskrit. His knowledge of languages, though not exhaustive, was sufficient to identify the script. The symbols spoke of protection, of sacred duties, a confirmation that the manor held secrets tied to the Sapphire Star's origins. The passage ended at a heavy oak door, slightly ajar, leading to a small chamber. Inside, Poirot found a table strewn with papers, maps, and a single candle flickering weakly. The figure he had pursued was gone, but the evidence of their presence was undeniable. Among the papers was a map, cruelly drawn, but precise, depicting a ruin a few miles from the manor. A notation in the margin read, "The Star's resting place." Poirot's pulse quickened. This was no mere hideout. It was a staging ground for the thief's next move. He gathered the map and papers, tucking them into his coat, and retraced his steps to the library. Hastings was waiting, his face pale with worry. "Poirot, where did you go? I heard noises, and then you were gone." "Calm yourself, Hastings," Poirot said, his voice steady. "We have made a discovery most significant. This map, it points to a ruin, a place tied to the Sapphire Star. But we must be cautious. Someone else was here, watching us. The library, it is not as silent as it seems." As they prepared to leave, Poirot's eyes fell on a figure standing in the doorway, the mysterious foreign diplomat, Mr. Ravi Shankar, whose presence at the gala had raised Poirot's suspicions. Shankar's dark eyes were unreadable, but his posture was tense, as if he had been caught off guard. "Monsieur Shankar," Poirot said smoothly, "you have an interest in libraries, I see, or perhaps in their secrets." Shankar's smile was tight, merely admiring the collection. "Monsieur Poirot, Ashford Manor is full of surprises." "Is it not?" "Indeed," Poirot replied, his gaze piercing. "And some surprises, they are more dangerous than others. Tell me, what do you know of the Star of Kali?" Shankar's expression flickered, a momentary crack in his composure. "A legend, nothing more. A story of gods and curses, fit for bedtime tales. Perhaps," Poirot said, stepping closer. "But legends, they have a way of becoming truth when a jewel is stolen and a note speaks of its return. You have ties to India, none, to a certain temple, perhaps." Shankar's eyes narrowed, but he held Poirot's gaze. "You are a clever man, Monsieur Poirot, but you tread on dangerous ground. The Sapphire Star is more than a gem, it is a symbol. Those who seek it may find more than they bargained for." Before Poirot could press further, Shankar turned and vanished into the corridor, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Hastings exhaled sharply. "I don't like him, Poirot. There's something shifty about that chap." "Shifty, perhaps," Poirot mused, "but also revealing. He knows more than he says. And his presence here, in the library, it is no coincidence. We must follow the map, Hastings. The ruin it depicts holds the next piece of our puzzle." The rest of the day was spent preparing for the expedition to the ruin. Poirot enlisted Lady Ashford's aid, securing a motor car and supplies. Though he kept the map's details vague to avoid alarming her, the manor buzzed with tension. The guests whispering about the theft and the curse. Poirot's 5 suspects the disgraced jeweler, Mr. Clarence Whitby, the diplomat, Shankar, the nervous clockmaker, Mr. Harrow, a scheming heiress, Miss Clara Beaumont, and a retired colonel with a gambling debt. Colonel Pritchard remained under scrutiny, their motives and alibis shifting like sand. As evening fell, Poirot and Hastings stood before the library's great windows, the map spread out on a table. The ruin, according to local records, was an abandoned chapel, once part of an ancient estate swallowed by time. The map's notation suggested it was a place of ritual significance, perhaps linked to the temple from which the Sapphire Star had been stolen. "We are close, Hastings," Poirot said, his voice alight with anticipation. "The library has whispered its secrets, and now we follow them to the ruin. But we must be vigilant. The one who fled, they know we are near. The game, it becomes dangerous." Hastings nodded, his hand resting on the revolver he had insisted on bringing. "I'm ready, Poirot. Let's catch this blighter and get the gem back." Poirot smiled faintly. "It is not merely the gem we seek, mon ami, but the truth, and the truth. It is always worth the chase." The library, now silent once more, seemed to watch as they departed, its shelves holding secrets yet to be uncovered. The Sapphire Stars curse loomed large, but Poirot's little gray cells were at work, unraveling the threads of a mystery that spanned continents and centuries. The ruin awaited, and with it, the next chapter in their pursuit of justice. Chapter 5. The Ruins of Fate. Hercule Poirot adjusted his impeccable mustache, his eyes scanning the misty horizon where the ruins of an ancient structure loomed against the dawn. The map retrieved from the hidden shelves of Ashford Manor's library had led him and Captain Hastings here, to a desolate site a few miles from the estate, where the air carried a chill that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. The Sapphire Star, stolen during the gala, was at the heart of a mystery that grew more intricate with each clue, and Poirot's little gray cells were alive with anticipation. Captain Hastings, ever the loyal companion, trudged beside him, his boots crunching against the frost-covered grass. "I say, Poirot, this place gives me the creeps," he muttered, pulling his coat tighter. "What do you suppose we'll find in these ruins? The Sapphire Star itself, perhaps?" Poirot's lips twitched into a faint smile. "Mon ami, the Sapphire Star is not so easily found, but the truth, that we shall uncover. The map, it points us to this place for a reason. A relic, perhaps, or a clue to the one who orchestrates this theft. Patience, Hastings, and observe." The ruins were a crumbling testament to a forgotten era, their stone arches and weathered columns half swallowed by ivy and time. The map, a brittle parchment with cryptic symbols, had indicated a specific spot, a sunken courtyard at the heart of the ruins, marked by a statue of a serpent entwined around a staff. As they approached, the morning mist parted, revealing the statue, its stone eyes glinting as if alive. Poirot knelt beside it, his gloved fingers tracing the carvings. "Curio," he murmured. "This serpent, it is a symbol of protection in certain ancient cultures. Perhaps a guardian of the Sapphire Star's secrets." Hastings frowned, peering over Poirot's shoulder. "Protection? Looks more like it's guarding something sinister. That map mentioned a relic, didn't it? Do you think it's buried here?" "Precisement," Poirot replied, standing and brushing dirt from his coat. "But we must be methodical. The one who stole the Sapphire Star knows of this place. They have left us a trail, whether by design or by error, and we shall follow it." The courtyard was a maze of broken flagstones and overgrown weeds, but Poirot's keen eyes spotted a patch of earth that seemed recently disturbed. He gestured for Hastings to bring the small spade they had carried from the manor. "Here, mon ami, dig carefully. The ground, it speaks when we listen." Hastings set to work, his enthusiasm tempered by the eerie silence of the ruins. The spade struck something solid within minutes, and with a grunt, he unearthed a small, rusted box. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he opened it, revealing a ceremonial dagger. its hilt encrusted with tiny sapphires that mirrored the legendary gem. The blade was etched with symbols matching those on the map. Mon Dieu, Poirot whispered, turning the dagger in his hands. This is no ordinary relic. It is tied to the Sapphire Star, perhaps a key to its power or its curse. Before they could examine it further, a shadow flickered at the edge of the courtyard. Hastings tensed, his hand reaching for the revolver he carried. Poirot, did you see that? I saw, Poirot said calmly, slipping the dagger into his coat. We are not alone. Stay close, Hastings, and be ready. The shadow moved again, darting behind a crumbling pillar. Poirot's steps were deliberate as he approached, his voice carrying a commanding edge. You there? Show yourself. Hercule Poirot does not play games with shadows. A figure emerged, cloaked in dark robes, their face obscured by a hood, and their hand was a shovel, its blade streaked with fresh dirt. You're too late, Poirot. The figure hissed, their voice low and unfamiliar. The relic is mine, and the Sapphire Star will follow. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Late? None. Monsieur, or perhaps Mademoiselle, I am precisely on time. The dagger, it is with me, and you shall explain yourself. Who are you, and for whom? Do you work? The figure laughed, a cold sound that echoed through the ruins. You think you've won by finding the trinket. The mastermind behind this is beyond your reach. The Sapphire Star's curse will claim its due, and you'll be caught in its web. Hastings lunged forward, but the figure was swift, tossing a handful of dirt to obscure their escape. They vanished into the mist, leaving only the faint sound of retreating footsteps. Poirot raised a hand to stop Hastings from giving chase. Non, mon ami, let them go. They have revealed more than they intended. How so? Hastings asked, brushing dirt from his face. They got away. Poirot held up the dagger, his expression thoughtful. They spoke of a mastermind, did they not? This confirms what I suspected. The theft of the Sapphire Star is no simple crime. It is a plan, meticulously crafted, and this dagger is a piece of the puzzle. Come, we return to the manor. There is much to consider. The journey back to Ashford Manor was quiet, the weight of the dagger in Poirot's pocket a constant reminder of the stakes. The ruins had yielded a clue, but the shadowy figure's words lingered, hinting at a larger conspiracy. As the manor's spires came into view, Poirot's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of the mystery. Back in the manor's drawing room, Poirot laid the dagger on a table, its sapphires catching the firelight. Lady Evelyn Ashford, pale but composed, joined them, her eyes widening at the sight of the relic. That dagger, she said, her voice trembling. It's from the stories my grandfather told, tales of a temple where the Sapphire Star was guarded by priests who wielded such blades. Poirot nodded, his fingers steepled. Madam, this dagger is indeed linked to the gem's origins. The map led us to it, and a figure in the ruins sought it as well. Tell me, what do you know of this temple and its guardians? Lady Ashford sank into a chair, her hands clasped tightly. The Sapphire Star was stolen centuries ago from a temple in India, or so the legend goes. The priests swore to protect it, believing it held a power that could either bless or curse its bearer. My family acquired it generations ago, but the stories of tragedy followed. Every owner of the gem has met misfortune. My father, my uncle, even my cousin. Hastings frowned. So the curse is real. That's what the thief believes. Non, Poirot said sharply. The curse, it is a story, a tool to manipulate. But the dagger, it is real, and its presence suggests someone wishes to reclaim the Sapphire Star for reasons beyond mere greed, perhaps to return it to this temple or to wield its supposed power. The door creaked open, and the diplomat, Mr. Sanjay Rao, entered, his dark eyes flicking to the dagger. You've been busy, Monsieur Poirot, he said, his tone smooth, but guarded. That dagger is a sacred relic. It belongs to my people, to the descendants of the temple's guardians. Poirot's gaze sharpened. And you, monsieur, knew of its location. Perhaps you sent the figure we met in the ruins. Rao's expression hardened. I know of the dagger. Yes, but I did not send anyone. My interest is in justice for the gem to be returned to its rightful place. The theft at the gala was not my doing, but I will not deny I wish to see the Sapphire Star restored. Hastings bristled. That sounds like a motive to me. Poirot, he's practically confessing. Calm yourself, Hastings, Poirot said, his voice steady. Monsieur Rao speaks of justice, but the truth, it hides in the shadows. We must examine the dagger further. Its symbols may tell us more. The rest of the day was spent in careful study. Poirot enlisted the manor's librarian, Miss Clara Wren, a sharp-witted woman with a passion for ancient texts. Together, they deciphered the dagger's etchings, which spoke of a ritual to bind the Sapphire Star's power, requiring both the gem and the dagger to be united at the temple's altar. The map, too, bore coordinates that pointed not to the ruins, but to a hidden chamber beneath them, sealed by a mechanism tied to the dagger's hilt. As night fell, Poirot gathered his notes, his mind a whirlwind of connections. The shadowy figure, the dagger, the temple's descendants, all were threads in a tapestry he was determined to unravel. Lady Ashford, still shaken, offered to fund an expedition to the hidden chamber, but Poirot declined. None, madam. The chamber, it is a trap or a distraction. The true mastermind wishes us to chase phantoms while they secure the Sapphire Star. Hastings, ever practical, suggested, why not set a trap of our own? If the thief wants the dagger, we could use it to lure them out. Poirot's eyes twinkled. An excellent thought, mon ami. And so we shall. The masquerade ball tomorrow night, it will be the perfect stage. The thief, or their master, will not resist the chance to reclaim this relic. The preparations for the masquerade consumed the manor, with servants bustling to arrange masks and decorations. Poirot, however, remained focused, his mind dissecting every detail. The shadowy figure had been hired, that much was clear. But by whom? The disgraced jeweler, Mr. Felix Grayson, had been evasive during questioning. His knowledge of gems unmatched. The clockmaker, Mr. Harrow, had hinted at Tom being the key, and his clock had stopped at the moment of the theft. Even Lady Ashford, with her fear of the curse, could be hiding more than she revealed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Poirot stood by the manor's grand window. The dagger in his hand, the sapphires gleamed, a mirror to the missing star. The curse, he murmured, is not in the gem, but in the hearts of those who seek it. Tomorrow, we shall see who dares to step into the light. The masquerade loomed, a night of deception and revelation. Poirot's plan was simple yet daring. Display the dagger publicly, under the guise of returning it to the manor's collection, and watch for the thief's move. The shadowy figures. Words echoed in his mind. The mastermind is beyond your reach. But Poirot was undeterred. No one, he vowed, was beyond the reach of Hercule Poirot's little gray cells. The morning of the masquerade brought new tension. A servant reported a strange figure lurking near the manor's gates, cloaked in the same dark robes as the one in the ruins. Poirot dispatched Hastings to investigate, but the figure vanished before they could be apprehended. They are bold, Poirot remarked, or desperate. Either way, they draw closer. The dagger was placed in a glass case in the manor's ballroom, guarded by Hastings and the trusted servants. Poirot mingled among the arriving guests, his mask a simple black domino that left his piercing eyes visible. The suspects were all present. Rao, his diplomatic poise unshaken. Grayson, his fingers twitching as he eyed the dagger. Harrow, hovering near the orchestra, and Lady Ashford, her elegance masking her unease. As the music swelled, Poirot's senses sharpened. He noticed a guest in a silver mask slipping a note to another. Their movements too deliberate to be innocent. He followed, weaving through the crowd, and intercepted the note, a cryptic message. The dagger at midnight. The passage awaits. Midnight was an hour away. Poirot returned to the dagger's case, his mind racing. The passage could only mean the hidden corridor found in Chapter 2. A tunnel beneath the manor leading to the stables. He whispered instructions to Hastings, who nodded and took position near the case. The clock struck midnight, and the lights flickered, a deliberate distraction. Poirot knew, in the chaos. A figure in a silver mask darted toward the case, shattering the glass with a concealed tool. Hastings lunged, but Poirot was faster, seizing the figure's wrist. The mask fell, revealing a hired thief, not one of the suspects, but the same cloaked figure from the ruins. "Speak," Poirot commanded. "Who sent you?" The thief struggled, but Poirot's grip was firm. "I don't know his name." The thief gasped. "A man in London, rich, powerful. He wants the Sapphire Star, and the dagger says they're the key to everything." Poirot released the thief to the servants, his mind ablaze. The mastermind was not among the guests, but in London, pulling strings from afar. The dagger, now secured, was the key to luring them out. The masquerade had served its purpose, tightening the net around the true culprit. As the guests dispersed, Poirot sat in the library, the dagger before him. The Sapphire Star was still out there, but the relic in his hands held answers, the symbols. The temple, the curse, all pointed to a motive deeper than greed. Someone believed in the gem's power, or in the fear it inspired, and they would stop at nothing to possess it. The chapter closed with Poirot's resolve unshaken. The ruins had yielded a clue, the dagger a weapon in his arsenal. The mastermind, whoever they were, would soon face the brilliance of Hercule Poirot. For now, he scepticism, his eyes on the horizon, where the next piece of the puzzle awaited. Chapter 6. The Masquerade's Deception. The grand ballroom of Ashford Manor shimmered under the glow of a dozen chandeliers, their crystal prisms scattering light like 1,000 tiny stars. Across the polished marble floor, the air was thick with the scent of roses and wax, and the hum of anticipation buzzed among the guests, each cloaked in elaborate masks and flowing costumes. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed in a tailored black suit with a silver cravat, adjusted his own mask, a sleek, obsidian creation that accentuated the sharp glint in his eyes. The masquerade ball, proposed by Lady Evelyn Ashford herself, was no mere festivity. It was a carefully orchestrated trap, designed by Poirot to lure the thief of the Sapphire Star back into the open. The theft of the legendary gem during the gala 3 nights prior had left the manor in a state of restless unease. Whispers of the curse tied to the Sapphire Star Curse said to bring ruin to its owners had only grown louder. And Poirot, with his methodical mind, knew the thief would not resist the chance to exploit the chaos of a mass gathering. The ballroom was a kaleidoscope of movement. A countess in emerald silk twirled with a gentleman in a crimson cape. A masked figure in gold brocade sipped champagne in a shadowed corner, and servants glided silently, their trays laden with crystal flutes and delicate canapes. Poirot's gaze swept the room, his little gray cells humming with purpose. Captain Hastings, ever the loyal companion, stood at Poirot's side, his own mask a rather garish affair, with peacock feathers tilting slightly as he surveyed the crowd. "I say, Poirot," he murmured, "this is quite the spectacle. But how on earth do you expect to spot the thief in this madness? Everyone's hidden behind a mask." Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. "Mon ami, it is precisely in the concealment that the truth reveals itself. The mask hides the face, but it cannot hide the heart. Observe the gestures, the posture, the choice of words. The thief will betray themselves, for no one can escape the scrutiny of Hercule Poirot." The orchestra struck up a waltz, and the floor became a whirl of color and motion. Poirot declined an offer to dance from a young lady in a sapphire blue gown, her mask adorned with peacock feathers that matched Hastings' own. Instead, he positioned himself near a marble pillar, his eyes darting from one guest to another. His list of suspects had narrowed to 5. The disgraced jeweler, Mr. Theodore Grayson, whose financial ruin gave him motive. The mysterious foreign diplomat, Count Victor Drakov, whose ties to the Sapphire Star's temple origins were undeniable, Lady Ashford's cousin, Miss Clara Beaumont, whose gambling debts were whispered about in London's high society, the reclusive clockmaker, Mr. Harrow, whose cryptic clues about time had piqued Poirot's interest, and a shadowy figure known only as the broker, a hired thief whose name surfaced in whispers among the manor's staff. As the waltz reached its crescendo, Poirot's attention was drawn to a figure in a black velvet cloak, their mask a stark white with gold filigree. The figure moved with a deliberate grace, pausing to exchange words with a servant before slipping toward the far end of the ballroom, where a velvet curtain concealed a doorway to the manor's west wing. Poirot's instincts prickled. "Hastings," he said softly, "follow me. But at a distance, we must not alarm our quarry." The two men wove through the crowd, Poirot's steps light and precise, Hastings trailing with a touch less finesse. The curtain parted silently as the cloaked figure disappeared through it, and Poirot followed, his senses alert. The west wing was dimly lit, its corridors lined with portraits of Ashford ancestors whose painted eyes seemed to watch their progress. The figure paused at a junction, glancing back, and Poirot pressed himself against the wall, motioning for Hastings to do the same. "You blimey, Poirot," Hastings whispered. "Do you think that's the thief?" "Patience, mon ami," Poirot replied. "We observe, we deduce, we act." The figure turned left, toward a small anteroom used for private meetings. Poirot crept closer, his ears catching the faint murmur of voices. He gestured for Hastings to remain at the corridor's end, then approached the door, which stood slightly ajar. Inside, the cloaked figure stood opposite another guest, a woman in a crimson gown, her mask adorned with black lace. Their conversation was hushed but urgent. "You were supposed to deliver it by now," the woman hissed. "The buyer is growing impatient." The cloaked figure's voice was low, almost a growl. "The plan changed. The gem is too hot to move tonight." Poirot's sniffing around. "And I won't risk it." Poirot's heart quickened. The gem. They were speaking of the Sapphire Star. He strained to hear more. But a sudden commotion from the ballroom, a woman's scream shattered the silence. The cloaked figure and the woman in crimson froze, then bolted in opposite directions. Poirot cursed under his breath and signaled Hastings to follow the woman, while he pursued the cloaked figure. The chase led through a maze of corridors, the cloaked figure's steps quick and sure. Poirot, despite his fastidious appearance, was surprisingly agile, his polished shoes tapping lightly on the stone floor. The figure darted into a small study, slamming the door behind them. Poirot paused, assessing the situation. Forcing the door would alert the thief, but waiting risked their escape. He opted for subtlety, turning the knob slowly and easing the door open. The study was dark, save for a sliver of moonlight filtering through a high window. The cloaked figure stood near a desk, their hands fumbling with something small, a piece of paper, perhaps. Poirot cleared his throat, and the figure spun around, their masks glinting in the dim light. "Monsieur," Poirot said calmly, "or perhaps madam, it is futile to flee. Hercule Poirot has found you." The figure hesitated, then let out a low chuckle. "You're persistent. I'll give you that," they said, their voice muffled by the mask. "But you're chasing shadows." "Detective shadows, perhaps," Poirot replied, stepping closer. "But shadows cast by a very real thief, the Sapphire Star." "If you please." The figure lunged for the window, but Poirot was faster. Seizing a heavy candelabrum from the desk and using it to block their path, the figure stumbled, and in the scuffle, their masks slipped, revealing the sharp features of Count Victor Drakov. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "The diplomat," he said softly. "How predictable," Drakov sneered, regaining his composure. "You have nothing, Poirot, no proof, no gem." "Perhaps not yet," Poirot said, "but the night is young, and Hercule Poirot is patient." Before Drakov could respond, another scream echoed from the ballroom, followed by shouts of alarm. Poirot's instincts told him to return, and he gestured for Dracov to precede him. After you, monsieur. We shall continue this discussion in the light. Back in the ballroom, chaos reigned. Guests clustered around a fallen figure, a young man in a silver mask, clutching his chest and gasping for air. Lady Ashford, her own mask discarded, knelt beside him, her face pale. He's been poisoned, she cried. Someone call a doctor. Poirot pushed through the crowd, his mind racing. The young man, identified as Mr. Philip Langley, a minor noble with no apparent connection to the theft, was convulsing. His lips tinged blue. A glass of champagne lay shattered at his feet, its contents pooling on the marble. Poirot knelt, sniffing the liquid carefully. Cyanide, he murmured, a bold move. Hastings reappeared. Breathless, the woman in crimson, she vanished into the east wing. I lost her in the crowd. Poirot nodded, his eyes scanning the room. The poisoning was no accident. It was a distraction, or perhaps a warning. He turned to Lady Ashford. Madam, who served the champagne to Monsieur Langley? Lady Ashford's eyes widened. I don't know. The servants were all masked tonight, as per the theme. Poirot's gaze fell on a nearby servant, their mask a plain white oval. You, monsieur, he called, beckoning them over. The servant approached reluctantly, and Poirot noted the slight tremble in their hands. Remove your mask, if you please. The servant hesitated, then complied, revealing the pale, nervous face of Mr. Harrow, the clockmaker. The crowd gasped, and Poirot's lips twitched in satisfaction. Monsieur Harrow, you seem to find yourself in the most curious places. Tell me, what brings you to serve champagne tonight? Harrow stammered, I was helping. The staff were short-handed. A convenient excuse, Poirot said. And yet, I wonder if your presence here is tied to another task, perhaps one involving a certain gem. Harrow's eyes darted to the side, and Poirot followed his gaze to a dancer in a silver mask, twirling near the edge of the crowd. The dancer's movements were fluid, almost too precise, and Poirot noticed a small bulge beneath their costume, a pocket, perhaps, or a hidden pouch. He moved swiftly, intercepting the dancer before they could slip away. Pardon, mademoiselle, Poirot said, his tone polite but firm. A moment of your time. The dancer froze, then turned, their mask concealing their expression. Poirot reached out, his fingers deftly slipping into the pocket of their costume. He withdrew a folded piece of paper, its edges worn. The dancer gasped but did not flee, and Poirot unfolded the note, his eyes scanning the text. It was a coded message, written in a cipher he recognized from his days in Brussels, a simple substitution code, used by smugglers. Most interesting, Poirot murmured. He turned to the crowd, raising his voice. Mesdames et messieurs, the masquerade has revealed more than mere faces tonight. This note, I believe, holds the key to the thief's next move. The dancer lunged, attempting to snatch the note, but Hastings, ever vigilant, caught their arm. The mask fell, revealing Miss Clara Beaumont, Lady Ashford's cousin. Her face was flushed, her eyes blazing with defiance. You can't prove anything, Poirot, she snapped. On the contrary, mademoiselle, Poirot said, the evidence mounts. But let us not spoil the evening further. Monsieur Harrow, Mademoiselle Beaumont, you will remain under my observation. As the crowd murmured, Poirot deciphered the note in his mind, the letters rearranging into a clear message. Midnight, stables, exchange. The thief planned to smuggle the Sapphire Star out of the manor tonight. Poirot glanced at his pocket. Watch-11-30. There was time, but not much. He turned to Hastings. Mon ami, gather the constables. We must secure the stables at once. The stables were a short walk from the manor, their wooden beams creaking in the night wind. Poirot, Hastings, and the local constables approached silently, their lanterns dim. The coded message had been precise, and Poirot's instincts told him the exchange was imminent. They hid behind a stack of hay bales, watching as a figure emerged from the shadows, a man in a dark coat, his face obscured by a low-brimmed hat. The man carried a small satchel, and Poirot's eyes narrowed as he saw the glint of something blue within. The Sapphire Star. Another figure approached. This one unmasked Count Drakov, his expression grim. "You're late," Drakov said, his voice low. The man in the hat shrugged. "Had to dodge your detective. Here's the gem." Before the exchange could occur, Poirot stepped forward, his voice ringing out. "Messieurs, the game is over. Hercule Poirot has no patience for thieves." The man in the hat swore and bolted, but the constables were faster, tackling him to the ground. Drakov raised his hands, his face a mask of resignation. Poirot retrieved the satchel, opening it to reveal a glittering blue gem, the Sapphire Star. Or so it appeared. He held it to the light, his eyes narrowing. "A fine replica," he said softly, "but not the true gem." Drakov's jaw tightened. "You're too clever, Poirot." "Indeed," Poirot replied, "but not clever enough to prevent your attempt. The true Sapphire Star remains hidden, but your actions tonight have brought me closer to its recovery." As the constables led Drakov and the man in the hat away, Poirot turned to Hastings, the coded note still in his hand. "The net tightens, mon ami," he said. "The thief is clever, but they cannot outwit Hercule Poirot." The night ended. With the masquerade disbanded, the guests shaken but safe, Poirot retired to his room, the note and the fake gem laid out on his desk. The Sapphire Star was still out there, its curse looming over Ashford Manor. But Poirot's mind was alight with possibilities, each clue a thread in the tapestry of truth. The thief's next move had been foiled, but the game was far from over. Chapter 7. The curse unleashed shed there in Ashford Manor hung heavy with an inexplicable tension, as though the very walls of the ancient estate were holding their breath. The gala's glittering aftermath had given way to a series of unsettling events that had the guests whispering in corners, their eyes darting nervously toward shadows that seemed to flicker just beyond the candlelight. Hercule Poirot, seated in a high-backed armchair in the manor's grand drawing room, observed the scene with his usual calm precision. His small, meticulous hands rested lightly on the arms of the chair, his mustache impeccably trimmed, and his eyes, those sharp, green-gray eyes, missed nothing. The Sapphire Star's theft had cast a pall over the manor, but it was the events of the past 24 hours that had truly unnerved the household. The first incident had occurred just after dawn, when the chandeliers in the ballroom began to flicker violently, their crystal prisms clattering as though stirred by an unseen hand. Servants swore they heard whispers in the corridors, low and guttural, speaking in a tongue none could identify. Then, at midday, a guest, a minor nobleman named Sir Reginald Thorne, had collapsed during luncheon, clutching his chest and muttering about a blue shadow before being rushed to his room. The doctor, summoned hastily from the nearby village, could find no cause for his ailment, though Sir Reginald remained pale and shaken, insisting he had seen something unnatural. Poirot, however, was not a man to be swayed by tales of the supernatural. The human mind, he had remarked to Captain Hastings earlier that morning, it is a fertile ground for fear, mon ami. But fear, it is often a distraction from the truth, and the truth, it is always logical. Hastings, ever the loyal companion, had nodded, though his own unease was evident in the way he kept glancing over his shoulder. Now, as evening descended upon Ashford Manor, Poirot had gathered the principal players in the drawing room. Lady Evelyn Ashford sat near the fireplace, her elegant fingers twisting a silk handkerchief, her face a mask of controlled anxiety. The disgraced jeweler, Mr. Clarence Whitmore, stood by the window, his gaunt frame silhouetted against the fading light. The mysterious diplomat, Monsieur Etienne Dubois, lounged in a corner, his dark eyes flickering with a mix of amusement and wariness. The clockmaker, Mr. Harrow, fidgeted near the door, his hands stained with ink and oil, as though he had been working on one of his contraptions until the last moment. And then there was Miss Clara Beaumont, the young heiress who had been suspiciously quiet since the theft, her delicate features betraying nothing but a faint, enigmatic smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," Poirot began, his voice clear and measured, "we find ourselves in the midst of a most curious situation. The Sapphire Star. It is gone, yes. But it is not the theft alone that occupies the little gray cells of Hercule Poirot. No, it is these disturbances, these events that some among you attribute to a curse. I assure you, Ms. there is no curse. There is only human ingenuity and human deceit." A murmur rippled through the room. Lady Ashford's handkerchief twisted tighter. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I have always dismissed the stories about the Sapphire Star as mere superstition. But these events, the lights, the whispers, Sir Reginald's collapse, how can they be explained? I fear the curse is real." Poirot raised a hand, silencing her gently. "Fear, Lady Ashford, is a powerful weapon. It clouds the mind, distorts the truth. But let us examine the facts. The chandeliers, they flicker. Why? Perhaps a fault in the wiring, or perhaps a deliberate act to unsettle us. The whispers, they are heard by some, but not by others. A trick of the ear, or something more calculated. And Sir Reginald, his illness, it is sudden, yes, but is it not possible that a poison, subtle and slow, was administered to create the illusion of a curse?" The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Dubious leaned forward, his voice smooth as velvet. "You suggest, Monsieur Poirot, that someone among us is orchestrating these events. To what end? To distract." Poirot replied simply, "To divert attention from the true crime, the theft of the Sapphire Star, and perhaps to conceal an even greater motive. But Hercule Poirot, he is not so easily distracted." He rose from his chair, his movements deliberate, and began to pace the room, his polished shoes clicking softly against the polished oak floor. "Let us consider the events of this day. The flickering lights. They began at precisely 6 in the morning, did they not? And yet, the manor's electrical system, it was inspected only last week, I am told, and found to be in perfect order. Curious, then, the whispers heard only in the east wing, where the servants' quarters are located, and Sir Reginald's. Collapse most convenient, that it should occur in the presence of so many witnesses, yet with no clear cause." He paused, turning to face the group. "These are not the work of a curse, Ms. They are the work of a clever mind, but not clever enough to deceive Hercule Poirot." Hastings, standing near the fireplace, cleared his throat. "But, Poirot, how can you be so sure? I mean, the Sapphire Star's history is rather grim, isn't it?" Lady Ashford said every owner met a tragic end. Poirot's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Monsieur Hastings, history is written by those who wish to be remembered. The stories of the Sapphire Star, they are embellished, exaggerated to inspire awe and fear. But let us not be swayed by legend. Let us focus on the present." He turned his attention to the ceremonial dagger, which lay on a velvet cushion, atop a small table in the center of the room. The relic, retrieved from the ruins in the previous chapter, was an object of fascination, a curved blade of blackened steel, its hilt encrusted with tiny sapphires that glinted in the firelight. Poirot had spent the morning examining it, consulting an ancient text he had found in the manor's library. The dagger, he had learned, was used in rituals by the secretive order that once guarded the Sapphire Star, a sect known as the Order of the Blue Flame. According to the journal, the dagger was not merely a weapon, but a key to binding the gem's supposed power. "The dagger," Poirot said, lifting it carefully. "It is more than a relic. It is a clue to the motive behind the theft. The Sapphire Star, it is said, holds a power that some believe can be unlocked only through a ritual involving this very blade. But what is this power? Eternal life, as some legends claim, or perhaps something more mundane: control, influence, wealth, the truth, it lies not in superstition, but in the desires of those who seek the gem. Lady Ashford's eyes widen. You mean to say someone is staging these events to make us believe the curse is real? To what purpose? To manipulate, Poirot said, his voice firm. To create chaos, to sow doubt, to ensure that we look to the supernatural rather than the logical. But Hercule Poirot, I see through such tricks, and I will prove it. He turned to Mr. Harrow, whose nervous fidgeting had grown more pronounced. Monsieur Harrow, you are a man of precision. Are you not? Your clocks, they are marvels of engineering, each gear and spring perfectly align. Yet, the clock you crafted for the gala, the one that stopped at the moment of the theft, it hides a secret, does it not? Harrow's face paled, his hands trembling. I don't know what you mean, Monsieur Poirot. The clock, it malfunctioned, a simple mechanical failure. Poirot smiled, a small, knowing smile. A simple failure, you say, and yet, I found, within it a fragment of sapphire, a fragment that matches the hue of the stolen gem. Tell me, Monsieur Harrow, why would a clockmaker conceal such a thing? The room erupted in gasps. Harrow took a step back, his eyes darting toward the door. I didn't steal the gem. I swear it, the fragment. It was given to me by someone who asked me to keep it safe. And who was this someone? Poirot pressed, his voice like a whip. Harrow hesitated, his lips trembling. I cannot say. They threatened me. They said if I spoke, my family would suffer. Poirot's expression softened, but only slightly. Monsieur Harrow, you are a man caught in a web not of your own making. But you must speak the truth. The safety of your family, it depends on it. Under Poirot's relentless gaze, Harrow broke. It was Whitmore, he whispered, pointing a trembling finger at the jeweler. He came to me days before the gala. He said he needed the clock to serve a purpose, to signal the moment of the theft. I didn't know what he planned. I swear. He gave me the sapphire fragment and told me to hide it. All eyes turned to Whitmore, who had gone deathly pale. Lies. He spat, his voice hoarse. The man is delusional. I had nothing to do with the theft. Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. We shall see, Monsieur Whitmore. But first, let us address these so-called supernatural events. The flickering lights, they are easily explained. A simple tampering with the manor's electrical panel accessible, I note, from the servants' quarters in the east wing. The whispers, a phonograph, perhaps, hidden in the walls, playing a recording to unsettle the superstitious. And Sir Reginald's collapse, a mild poison, administered in his tea, designed to mimic a heart attack but leave no lasting harm. He turned to Lady Ashford. Madam, your manor, it is a place of secrets, yes, hidden passages. Concealed devices, these are the tools of the deceiver. But they are not the work of a curse. They are the work of a human hand, a hand that seeks to keep the sapphire star for themselves. The room was silent, the weight of Poirot's deductions settling over the group like a fog. Lady Ashford rose, her face resolute. Monsieur Poirot, if what you say is true, then we must act. We must find the true culprit and end this madness. Poirot nodded. And we shall, madam. But first, we must lay a trap to catch a thief who believes they have outwitted us all. The plan was set in motion with meticulous care. Poirot, ever the strategist, proposed a ruse to lure the thief into revealing themselves. The manor would host a private auction, announced only to the key suspects, where a replica of the sapphire star would be offered for sale. The bait, Poirot explained, would be irresistible to the true culprit, who would either attempt to steal the replica or expose their hand in some other way. The auction was to take place in the manor's conservatory, a glass-walled room filled with exotic plants and bathed in moonlight. The setting was deliberately chosen. For its visibility, every movement would be observed, every gesture scrutinized. Poirot enlisted Hastings to oversee the preparations. ensuring that the replica gem, a flawless imitation crafted by a local jeweler, was placed in a locked glass case at the center of the room. As the hour of the auction approached, the manor buzzed with nervous energy. The suspects arrived one by one, their faces a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Dubious, ever the charmer, complimented the conservatory's beauty, though his eyes lingered on the glass case. Whitmore, still shaken by Harrow's accusation, kept his distance, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Miss Beaumont, dressed in a gown of midnight blue, smiled faintly, as though she knew something the others did not. Harrow, meanwhile, hovered near the door, his eyes darting nervously. Lady Ashford, playing her part, opened the auction with a speech about the Sapphire Star's legacy. "This replica," she said, gesturing to the case, "is a symbol of our determination to move beyond the curse. Let us hope it brings us closer to the truth." The bidding began, slow and tentative at first, but Poirot's attention was not on the bids. His eyes scanned the room, noting every movement, every glance. He had instructed the servants to keep watch on the manor's exits, and he had personally ensured that the electrical panel was guarded to prevent any further supernatural disturbances. It was then that it happened, a sudden crash from the far side of the conservatory. A potted fern had been knocked over, its soil spilling across the floor. All eyes turned toward the sound, and in that moment of distraction, a figure darted toward the glass case. Poirot, anticipating such a move, sprang into action, his small frame surprisingly agile. "Arates," he shouted, pointing to the figure, a masked individual cloaked in black. The figure froze, caught in the act of prying open the case. Hastings, quick to react, tackled the intruder, pinning them to the ground. The mask was removed, revealing none other than Miss Clara Beaumont, her delicate features twisted in defiance. "Miss Beaumont," Poirot said, his voice calm but firm, "you disappoint me. I had hoped for a more subtle approach." The heiress struggled against Hastings' grip, but her defiance quickly gave way to resignation. "You don't understand, Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low. "The Sapphire Star, it belongs to my family. It was stolen from us generations ago. I only wanted to take back what was rightfully ours." Poirot tilted his head, studying her. "A noble motive, perhaps, but your methods, they are less than honorable. The disturbances, the poison, the whispers, these were your doing, were they not?" Clara's eyes flickered, but she did not deny it. "I needed to create fear, to keep the others distracted while I searched for the gem. I never meant to harm anyone naturally." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. "And yet, mademoiselle, you have caused much harm. But you are not the mastermind, are you?" "No. There is another mind more cunning, more ruthless, who has used you as a pawn." The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Clara's eyes widened, but before she could speak, a low, guttural laugh echoed from the shadows. All heads turned to see a figure step into the moonlight, a man none had expected. It was Lord Varnum, the reclusive aristocrat whose name had surfaced only in whispers. His tall, imposing frame filled the doorway, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous intensity. "Well done, Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice smooth and cold. "You are as clever as they say. But you are too late. The Sapphire Star is already in my possession." Poirot's smile was serene, almost amused. "Is it, monsieur? Or is it merely another of your illusions? You see, I anticipated your involvement. The replica in the case, it was not the only bait. The true Sapphire Star. It is safe, locked away where you cannot reach it." Varnum's expression darkened, his confidence faltering. "You lie," he hissed, but Poirot's calm certainty unnerved him. "We shall see," Poirot said simply. He turned to Hastings. "Mon ami, please escort Mademoiselle Beaumont to a secure room. And you, Monsieur Harrow, you will assist me in ensuring that Lord Varnum does not leave this manor." The conservatory erupted in chaos as Varnum made a desperate lunge for the door, only to be intercepted by the burly footman. "Clara, meanwhile, was led away. Her head bowed in defeat. The other guests watched in stunned silence as Poirot took charge, his authority unquestioned as the night drew to a close. Poirot stood alone in the conservatory, the replica gem still gleaming in its case. The sapphire star, he knew, was hidden in a place only he could access, a precaution he had taken after retrieving it from the ruins. The disturbances, the curse, the chaos, all had been orchestrated to conceal the true motive, Lord Varnum's obsession with the gem's mythical power. But the game was not yet over. Poirot knew that Varnum's confession, when it came, would reveal the final pieces of the puzzle. For now, he had restored order to Ashford Manor, debunking the myth of the curse and exposing the human greed at its heart. He adjusted his tie, smoothed his mustache, and allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The trap had been set, and the mastermind would soon be caught. Hercule Poirot, as always, was one step ahead. Chapter 8. The traitor within. The morning sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of Ashford Manor, its golden rays doing little to dispel the chill that had settled over the estate. Hercule Poirot stood at the edge of the grand terrace, his gloved hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The events of the past days, the theft of the sapphire star, the cryptic clues, the whispers of a curse had woven a tapestry of intrigue that demanded his utmost attention. Yet, for all his meticulous observation, the identity of the mastermind behind the theft remained elusive, a shadow just beyond his grasp. The little gray cells, as he so fondly called them, were working tirelessly, piecing together the fragments of evidence that had surfaced since the galeless, chaotic night. Captain Hastings, ever the loyal companion, approached with a steaming cup of tea, his brow furrowed with concern. "Poirot, you've been out here since dawn. Surely you've deduced something by now. That jeweler, Mr. Grayson, he's been acting awfully suspicious. All those nervous glances at the gala, and I swear I saw him lingering near the display." Case before the blackout, Poirot turned, his mustache twitching slightly as he regarded Hastings. "Mon ami, your enthusiasm for the obvious is, as always, charming. Yes, Mr. Grayson is a man of interest, but suspicion alone does not a culprit make. We must have proof, Hastings, proof that withstands the scrutiny of logic, and I, Hercule Poirot, have devised a plan to secure it." Hastings raised an eyebrow, setting his tea down on the stone balustrade. "A plan? Do tell, old chap. You've got the gleam in your eye again." Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile, though his eyes remained sharp. "A trap, Hastings. The thief, or their accomplice, is still among us, hidden within the walls of this manor. They believe themselves clever, but they have underestimated Poirot. Tonight, we shall stage a little drama, a performance to draw the serpent from its lair." The plan, as Poirot explained, was deceptively simple yet required precise execution. The guests, still reeling from the curse's supposed manifestations, flickering lights, ghostly apparitions, and the sudden illness of Mrs. Langley, a minor guest with a penchant for dramatics, were to be gathered in the manor's grand dining hall. Poirot had instructed Lady Evelyn Ashford to announce that a new clue to the sapphire store's whereabouts had been discovered, one that would be revealed to all present. The bait was irresistible. The promise of the gem's recovery would force the conspirator to act, revealing themselves in their desperation to maintain control. As evening descended, the dining hall buzzed with nervous anticipation. The chandeliers cast a warm glow over the long mahogany table where the guests sat in their finery, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease. Lady Ashford, resplendent in a deep emerald gown, stood at the head of the table, her voice steady, despite the strain in her eyes. "My dear friends," she began, her tone carrying the weight of her authority, "I have been informed by Monsieur Poirot that a significant breakthrough has been made in the matter of the sapphire star. Tonight, we shall uncover the truth." A murmur rippled through the room. Poirot, seated near the center, observed each guest with the precision of a hawk, There was Mr. Grayson, the disgraced jeweler, whose fingers twitched nervously around his wine glass. Beside him sat Madame Dubious, the enigmatic French widow whose sharp wit and sharper gaze had not escaped Poirot's notice. The foreign diplomat, Mr. Kapoor, maintained a stoic expression, though his eyes darted toward the door more than once. Miss Clara Wentworth, the young heiress with a rumored gambling debt, toyed with her necklace, her smile tight, and finally, Dr. Mortimer, the Manor's physician, whose calm demeanor seemed almost too composed. Poirot rose, his small stature commanding the room's attention. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice clear and deliberate. "The Sapphire Star is not merely a gem of beauty, but a magnet for greed and deception. The one who stole it is among us, and tonight they shall be revealed. I have in my possession a document, a ledger, if you will, that details the movements of the gem on the night of its theft. This ledger, found in a most unexpected place, points to one of you." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. The guests exchanged uneasy glances, their composure faltering. Poirot reached into his jacket and produced a small, leather-bound notebook, its edges worn, but its presence commanding. "This ledger," he continued, "was hidden in the secret compartment of Mr. Harrow's clock, a detail overlooked by the thief in their haste. It contains a record of transactions, names, and times that align precisely with the moment the lights went out." Mr. Grayson's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. All eyes turned to him, and he flushed, stammering, "I don't know what you mean, Monsieur Poirot. I'm merely a guest here, nothing more." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his voice softening to a dangerous calm. "Monsieur Grayson, your expertise in gems is well known, as is your unfortunate fall from grace after a scandal in London. A man with your knowledge would know the value of the Sapphire Star, and perhaps the temptation to reclaim your status was too great." Grayson's face paled, his hands trembling. "This is absurd. I had nothing to do with it, then." "You will not object," Poirot said smoothly, "to my examination of your belongings. If you are innocent, there will be nothing to hide." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Grayson hesitated, his eyes darting to the door as if contemplating flight. Before he could act, Captain Hastings, positioned strategically near the exit, stepped forward, his presence a subtle but firm deterrent. "Stay where you are, Mr. Grayson," Hastings said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Poirot nodded to Lady Ashford, who signaled for the Manor staff to escort Grayson to his room. The guests watched in stunned silence as the jeweler was led away, his protests growing fainter. Poirot, however, was not finished. "The trap," he said, addressing the room, "is not yet complete. Monsieur Grayson is a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole. The mastermind, the one who pulls the strings, is still among us, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall find them." The search of Grayson's room yielded immediate results. Hidden beneath a false bottom in his suitcase was a velvet pouch containing a sapphire, not the Sapphire Star, but a convincing replica. Poirot held the stone to the light, its facets catching the glow of the chandelier. "A clever deception," he murmured, "but not clever enough. This is a fake, designed to mislead us while the true gem remains hidden." Grayson, now returned to the dining hall under the watchful eye of Hastings, collapsed into a chair, his defiance crumbling. "I didn't steal it," he said, his voice hoarse. "I swear it. I was hired to create the replica, to plant it where it would be found. They promised me a fortune, enough to clear my name and start anew." "Who?" Poirot demanded, his voice sharp. "Who hired you?" "Monsieur Grayson." Grayson swallowed, his eyes flickering with fear. "I don't know his name. He contacted me through intermediaries, always in shadows. A collector," he said, "someone with wealth beyond imagining. He wanted the Sapphire Star, not for its value, but for what it could do." He spoke of power, of secrets locked within the gem. Poirot's mind raced, the pieces of the puzzle shifting into place. A collector, obsessed with the sapphire star's supposed mystical properties, fit the pattern of greed and ambition he had observed. But the identity of this figure remained a shadow, a phantom orchestrating events from afar. "You will tell me everything, Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, his tone unyielding. "Every detail, every message, every meeting, the truth, or you shall face the consequences of your silence." Grayson's confession spilled forth like a dam breaking. He described cryptic letters delivered by anonymous couriers, meetings in darkened alleys, and promises of wealth that had lured him into the conspiracy. The collector, he claimed, had provided detailed plans for the gala's blackout, ensuring the theft would go unnoticed in the chaos. The replica was his insurance, a decoy to throw investigators off the trail. As Grayson spoke, Poirot's attention shifted to the other guests, their faces betraying varying degrees of shock and guilt. Madame Dubois dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, her composure faltering. Mr. Kapoor's stoic mask slipped, revealing a flicker of unease. Miss Wentworth's fingers tightened around her necklace, and Dr. Mortimer's calm facade seemed to harden, as if bracing for scrutiny. Poirot excused himself briefly, stepping into the corridor to confer with Hastings. "The collector is close." "Hastings," he said, his voice low, "Grayson is but a pawn, a tool in a larger game. The mastermind knows the manor, its secrets, its people. We must act swiftly, before they slip through our fingers." Hastings nodded, his jaw set. "What's the next move, Poirot?" "We return to the dining hall," Poirot replied, "and we provoke. The mastermind is clever, but they are not infallible. A single misstep, and we shall have them." Back in the dining hall, Poirot resumed his address, his voice carrying a new intensity. "The sapphire star is more than a jewel," he said, pacing slowly before the guests. "It is a symbol of ambition, of desire that blinds men to reason. The one who seeks it believes they can control its power. But they are mistaken. I have seen the ledger, the replica, the plans, and I know that the collector is here, watching, waiting." A sudden commotion interrupted his words. A servant burst into the room, his face pale. "Monsieur Poirot, there's been an incident in the gardens. A man fleeing toward the woods." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The serpent moves," he murmured. Without hesitation, he gestured to Hastings. "Come, mon ami, we pursue." The night air was cool and sharp as Poirot and Hastings raced across the manor's grounds, their footsteps muffled by the grass. The servant led them to the edge of the estate, where a figure clad in dark clothing sprinted toward the dense woods. The moonlight glinted off something in the figure's hand, a small, gleaming object that could only be the sapphire star. "Stop!" Hastings shouted, his military instincts kicking in as he surged forward. The figure glanced back, their face obscured by a scarf, and redoubled their efforts, disappearing into the trees. Poirot, less suited for physical pursuit, relied on his keen observation, noting the direction of the figure's flight and the faint trail of disturbed leaves. The chase led them deep into the woods, where the trees grew thick and the moonlight barely penetrated. Hastings, breathing heavily, caught sight of the figure again, now scrambling up a rocky outcrop. "There," he called, pointing. But as they approached, the figure vanished, leaving behind only a discarded scarf and a small, glinting object on the ground. Poirot knelt, retrieving the object with care. It was another sapphire, identical to the replica found in Grayson's room. "Another decoy," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "The true gem is still with them, or hidden elsewhere. But this," he held up the scarf, examining its fine silk weave. "This is a clue. It bears the scent of a particular perfume, one I have encountered before." Hastings frowned, catching his breath. "Perfume? Whose?" Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. "Madame Dubois," he said softly. "Her fragrance is unmistakable, a blend of jasmine and amber. She was in the dining hall, yet the scarf suggests she, or someone close to her, was here." They returned to the manor, the scarf and fake gem in hand. to find the guests in disarray. Lady Ashford was attempting to restore order, her voice strained. "Monsieur Poirot, what is happening? First Grayson, now this." Poirot held up the scarf, his gaze locking onto Madame Dubious. "Madame, this was found in the woods, where a thief attempted to flee with yet another false sapphire star. Can you explain its presence?" Madame Dubious's eyes widened, her hand fluttering to her throat. "That is mine, yes, but I lost it days ago. I swear, I had no part in this." Poirot studied her, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps, madam, but the truth has a way of revealing itself. The collector, I believe, is someone with access to your possessions, someone who moves freely within this manor, and I am very close to unmasking them." The night ended with no further revelations, but the trap had served its purpose. Grayson's confession had exposed the conspiracy's depth, and the chase in the woods had narrowed the field. Poirot retired to his room, his mind alight with possibilities. The collector, he knew, was a figure of immense cunning, but they had made a mistake leaving the scarf, planting the decoys. Underestimating Hercule Poirot died as he sipped a tisane. Poirot reflected on the puzzle before him. The sapphire star was close, its allure drawing the conspirators into the open. The collector's identity was crystallizing in his mind, a name and a motive taking shape. Lord Varnum, a reclusive aristocrat with a reputation for acquiring rare artifacts, had been mentioned in passing by Lady Ashford, his name tied to rumors of obsession with mystical objects. Could he be the shadow behind the theft? The chapter closed with Poirot setting his cup down, his eyes gleaming with determination. The net was tightening, the mastermind's gambit nearing its end. Tomorrow, he would take the fight to Varnum's estate, where the sapphire star and the truth awaited. Chapter 9. The collector's gambit fog clung to the rolling hills of the English countryside, like a shroud, muffling the crunch of gravel beneath the wheels of the Rolls-Royce as it wound its way toward Lord Varnum's fortified estate. Hercule Poirot sat in the back, his gloved hands folded neatly over the silver handle of his cane, his sharp eyes fixed on the misty landscape beyond the window. The air inside the car was warm, scented faintly with the leather of the seats and the lingering trace of his tisane, yet Poirot's mind was as cold and precise as a Swiss timepiece. The sapphire star, the glittering enigma, weighed heavily on his thoughts, not its physical heft, for it remained lost, but the burden of its mystery, which he was determined to unravel. Beside him, Captain Hastings shifted uncomfortably, his brow furrowed as he glanced at Poirot. "I say, Poirot, this Varnum fellow sounds like a proper villain, a collector with a mania for cursed gems. It's like something out of a penny dreadful." Poirot's mustache twitched in what might have been a smile. Moaned Cher Hastings. "The world is full of men who collect not for beauty, but for power. Lord Varnum, I suspect, is such a man. The sapphire star is no mere bauble to him, it is a key to something he desires above all else. And that, my friend, is what makes him dangerous." The car slowed as it approached the towering iron gates of Varnum Hall, a sprawling Gothic pile that loomed out of the fog like a specter. The gates, flanked by stone lions weathered by time, creaked open under the watchful eyes of two liveried footmen. Their faces were impassive, but Poirot noted the subtle tension in their postures, the way their hands lingered near their coat pockets, armed, he thought, and not merely for show. The Rolls-Royce rolled to a stop before the manor's imposing entrance, where a butler awaited, his expression as rigid as the starched collar of his uniform. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," he intoned, bowing slightly. "Lord Varnum is expecting you." They were led through a grand hall, its walls lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow their every step. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and polish, and the faint ticking of a distant clock echoed like a heartbeat. Poirot's gaze swept the room, cataloging every detail. The tapestries depicting scenes of conquest, the marble busts of forgotten emperors, the glint of crystal chandeliers overhead, A collector's domain, he mused, but one that whispered of obsession rather than appreciation. Lord Varnum awaited them in a study that could have doubled as a museum. Shelves groaned under the weight of artifacts, Etruscan vases, jade figurines, a golden mask that might have adorned a pharaoh. At the center of the room stood a massive oak desk, behind which sat the man himself. Lord Varnum was a weary figure. His silver hair swept back from a high forehead, his eyes sharp and predatory. He rose as they entered, extending a hand adorned with a single sapphire ring that caught the firelight. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice smooth as velvet yet edged with steel. "Your reputation precedes you. I trust your journey was pleasant, most satisfactory." "Lord Varnum," Poirot replied, his tone equally polished. "Though I confess, it is not the journey but the destination that intrigues me. The Sapphire Star, I believe, is the true object of our visit." Varnum's smile was a thin, calculated thing, direct. "As always, yes, the Sapphire Star, a gem of unparalleled beauty, and, if the rumors are true, unparalleled danger. But surely you don't believe in curses, Monsieur Poirot?" "I believe in facts," Poirot said, his eyes never leaving Varnum's. "And the fact is, the Sapphire Star was stolen from Ashford Manor, and all paths lead to you, Hastings." Ever the loyal but impulsive companion leaned forward. "Now see here, Varnum, we know you're behind it. That jeweler, Carstairs, spilled the beans. You hired him to nab the gem, didn't you?" Varnum's smile did not waver, but his fingers tightened slightly around the arm of his chair. "Captain Hastings, your enthusiasm is charming, but accusations require proof. Carstairs is a broken man, desperate for coin. His word is worth less than the dust on my shelves." Poirot raised a hand, silencing Hastings before he could retort. "Let us not waste time with denials, Lord Varnum. You are a collector, and the Sapphire Star is no ordinary prize. Its history, its supposed power would be irresistible. To a man of your appetites," Varnum leaned back, steepling his fingers, "you speak of power. Tell me, Monsieur Poirot, what do you know of the Sapphire Star's legend?" "I know it was taken from a temple in India, centuries ago," Poirot said, his voice steady. "I know it is said to grant eternal life to its true owner, but only at a terrible cost. And I know that you, Lord Varnum, believe in that legend. Why else would you risk so much to possess it?" For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Then Varnum laughed, a low, mirthless sound. "You are perceptive, Monsieur Poirot. Yes, I believe the Sapphire Star holds secrets that could change the course of a man's life. But I am no thief. If the gem is here, as you seem to believe, you are welcome to search for it." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A generous offer, Lord Varnum, and one I shall accept." The search began under the watchful eyes of Varnum's staff, who trailed Poirot and Hastings like shadows as they moved through the manor's labyrinthine halls. Every room was a treasure trove, each artifact a testament to Varnum's insatiable hunger for the rare and the forbidden, yet the Sapphire Star remained elusive. Poirot's fingers brushed over ivory carvings and ancient scrolls, his mind racing as he pieced together the puzzle. The gem was here, he was certain of it. But where? In a dimly lit gallery on the second floor. Poirot paused before a glass case containing a single object, a ceremonial scepter, its head encrusted with sapphires. None matched the size or brilliance of the Sapphire Star, but something about the scepter's design, a faint etching of a star, caught his attention. He leaned closer, his magnifying glass glinting in the candle light. "Hastings," he murmured, "observe the base of this scepter. The wood is new, but the carvings are old, too old, perhaps, for this setting." Hastings squinted, his face a mask of confusion. "What are you getting at, Poirot? Patience. Mon ami. All will be revealed." Poirot's fingers traced the scepter's base, probing for irregularities. A faint click rewarded his efforts, and a hidden compartment sprang open, revealing a velvet-lined hollow, empty. Poirot's mustache twitched, but his eyes betrayed no disappointment. The sapphire star was here, he said softly, but it has been moved recently, I think. Varnum, who had joined them in the gallery, raised an eyebrow. An empty compartment proves nothing. Monsieur Poirot? On the contrary, Poirot said, turning to face him, it proves everything. The sapphire star is no longer in this case because you knew I was coming. You have hidden it elsewhere, but you cannot hide the truth from Hercule Poirot. Varnum's composure faltered for the briefest moment, a flicker of unease crossing his face. Poirot seized the advantage. Tell me, Lord Varnum, what is it you seek? Eternal life? Or something more tangible? Power, perhaps, over those who would oppose you? Varnum's eyes narrowed. You overstep, Poirot. This is my home, and you are a guest. I suggest you choose your words carefully. But Poirot was undeterred. A guest. But one who sees clearly. The sapphire star is not merely a gem to you, it is a symbol, a means to an end. But what end? I wonder. Let us speak plainly. Lord Varnum, where is the gem? The tension in the room was palpable, a taut wire ready to snap. Then, with a suddenness that startled even Poirot, Varnum clapped his hands. The doors to the gallery swung open, and four guards entered, their faces hardened, their hands resting on the hilts of concealed weapons. I tire of this game, Poirot, Varnum said, his voice cold. You will leave my estate, now. Hastings bristled, his hand inching toward his coat. But Poirot's calm gesture stayed him. Very well, Lord Varnum, Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild. We shall leave. But know this, the sapphire star will not remain hidden forever, and neither will your secrets. As they were escorted back to the Rolls-Royce, Hastings muttered, Blast it, Poirot. We were so close. He's got the gem. I know it. Calm yourself, Hastings, Poirot replied, his eyes gleaming with purpose. Lord Varnum has made a mistake. He has shown his fear, and fear, mon ami, is a crack in the armor. We shall return, and we shall have the sapphire star. The journey back to London was a quiet one. The fog thickened now, wrapping the countryside in an impenetrable veil. But Poirot's mind was alight with possibilities. Varnum's reaction had confirmed his suspicions. The sapphire star was indeed in his possession, and its hiding place was within the estate, the empty compartment. And the scepter was a clue, but not the only one. There was something else. Something Poirot had seen, but not yet understood. A pattern, a rhythm, like the ticking of a clock. Back at his London flat, Poirot poured himself a tisane and settled into his armchair, his eyes half closed as he reviewed every detail of the day. Hastings paced the room, his agitation a start. Contrast to Poirot's calm. I don't see how we're going to get back in there, Hastings said, running a hand through his hair. Varnum's got guards, and he's on to us. The man's a fortress. A fortress, yes, Poirot murmured. But even fortresses have weaknesses. We must think, Hastings. We must use the little gray cells. The sapphire star is not merely hidden, it is protected. And protection requires a system, a method. We must find the method. The next morning, Poirot dispatched a series of telegrams, each carefully worded to elicit information without arousing suspicion. One was sent to a contact at the British Museum, requesting details on the ceremonial scepter's origins. Another went to an old acquaintance in the antiques trade, inquiring about Varnum's recent acquisitions. A third, more discreet, was addressed to a certain Inspector Japp, asking for any records of unusual activity at Varnum Hall. By midday, the responses began to arrive. The museum confirmed that the scepter was of Indian origin, likely from the same region as the Sapphire Star's temple. The antiques dealer reported a rumor that Varnum had recently purchased a rare vault mechanism designed to protect valuable artifacts, and Japp, ever reliable, sent word of a delivery to Varnum Hall tonight's prior, a crate marked as containing scientific equipment. The scientific equipment, Poirot mused, tapping his chin. A curious choice of words for a man who collects relics of the past. Hastings frowned. You think it's a cover for something? Precisement. Poirot said, the Sapphire Star is not in a glass case or a hidden drawer. It is in a vault. Hastings, a vault designed to keep it safe from prying eyes. But no vault is impregnable, not when Hercule Poirot sets his mind to it. The plan that formed in Poirot's mind was as audacious as it was meticulous. Returning to Varnum Hall under the guise of an apology for his impertinence, Poirot would request a private audience with Varnum, keeping him occupied while Hastings, with his knack for improvisation, infiltrated the estate's lower levels. The vault, Poirot deduced, was likely hidden in the cellars, where the delivery of scientific equipment had been received that evening. Dressed in his finest evening attire, Poirot arrived at Varnum Hall with an air of contrition that was entirely feigned. Varnum, wary but intrigued, agreed to meet him in the study, leaving Hastings to slip away under the pretense of visiting the lavatory. The cellars were a maze of damp stone and flickering torchlight, but Hastings, guided by Poirot's precise instructions, located a heavy iron door tucked behind a stack of wine barrels. The door bore no lock in the traditional sense, but a complex mechanism of gears and dials. Glowing faintly with an eerie blue light, Hastings, sweating despite the chill, set to work with the tools Poirot had provided: a set of jewelers' picks and a small mirror to reflect the mechanism's inner workings. Meanwhile, in the study, Poirot engaged Varnum in a verbal dance, weaving compliments with subtle probes. Your collection, Lord Varnum, is a marvel, he said, gesturing to a jade statue. But I wonder, do you ever tire of mere objects? Is there not something greater you seek? Varnum's eyes flickered with something akin to hunger. You speak of the Sapphire Star again, he said. You are persistent, Poirot. But let us say, hypothetically, that I had the gem. What would you do with it? I would return it, Poirot said simply, to its rightful place, where its power, if it exists, can do no harm. Varnum laughed, but there was no mirth in it, a noble sentiment, but naive. Power is not to be returned, it is to be wielded. Their conversation was interrupted by a distant clang, faint but unmistakable. Varnum's head snapped up, his face paling. What was that? Poirot's expression remained serene. Perhaps a servant dropping a tray. Or perhaps, Lord Varnum, the sound of your secrets being uncovered in the cellar. Hastings had succeeded in disabling the vault's mechanism, revealing a small chamber lined with velvet. At its center, on a pedestal of black marble, sat the Sapphire Star, its facets catching the torchlight and a blaze of blue fire. Hastings, awestruck, reached for it, only to freeze as footsteps echoed behind him. Step away. Captain, a voice growled. One of Varnum's guards, a hulking figure with a pistol in hand, emerged from the shadows. Hastings raised his hands, his mind racing. Now, look here. There's no need for that, he said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. I'm just admiring the architecture. The guard's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, a sharp crack echoed through the cellar. The guard crumpled, revealing Poirot standing behind him, his cane raised like a club. Mon ami, Poirot said, slightly breathless. You must be more discreet. Together, they retrieved the Sapphire Star, wrapping it carefully in a silk handkerchief. The escape was a blur of shadows and adrenaline, with Poirot and Hastings dodging guards and navigating the manor's twisting corridors. By the time Varnum realized what had happened, they were in the Rolls-Royce, speeding through the fog toward London. Back at the flat, Poirot examined the gem under a magnifying glass, its beauty both mesmerizing and unsettling. It is magnificent, he murmured, but its power lies not in magic, but in the desires it awakens. Lord Varnum sought immortality, but he found only ruin. Hastings, still catching his breath, shook his head. And the curse. Do you think it's real, Poirot? Poirot smiled faintly. The only curse, Hastings, is the greed of men. But we shall ensure this gem causes no more harm. Tomorrow, we shall arrange for its return to the temple, where it belongs, as the fire crackled in the hearth. Poirot sipped his tisane, his mind already turning to the final act of this drama. The Sapphire Star was safe, Varnum's schemes undone. But one question lingered. Would the gem's return truly break its curse, or merely pass its burden to another? For now, Poirot was content to let the answer wait, savoring the satisfaction of a case well solved. Chapter 10. The final reckoning. Hercule Poirot stood in the grand drawing room of Ashford Manor, the morning sun streaming through the tall, arched windows, casting golden rays across the polished mahogany floor. The room was filled with an air of anticipation, the kind that precedes a storm's breaking or a mystery's resolution. The guests, suspects, and household staff were gathered, their faces a tapestry of curiosity, apprehension, and thinly veiled guilt. The Sapphire Star, that enigmatic gem which had woven a thread of misfortune through the lives of all who coveted it, rested safely in Poirot's possession, locked within a small velvet pouch tucked inside his immaculate suit jacket. Today, he would lay bare the truth, unravel the intricate tapestry of deception, and bring justice to the chaos that had unfolded under the manor's opulent roof. Poirot adjusted his tie, his movements precise, his demeanor calm yet commanding. His small, neatly trimmed mustache twitched slightly as he surveyed the assembly. Lady Evelyn Ashford sat rigidly in a high-backed chair, her delicate hands clasped tightly, her emerald eyes darting nervously. Beside her stood Captain Hastings, ever the loyal companion, his brow furrowed with the weight of the case's complexities. The 5 primary suspects: the disgraced jeweler Mr. Roland Baxter, the enigmatic foreign diplomat Monsieur Henry Dubious, the nervous clockmaker Mr. Edgar Harrow, the cunning socialite Miss Clara Wentworth, and the stoic butler Mr. Grayson stood in a loose semicircle, their expressions a mix of defiance and unease. Other guests, minor players in the drama, filled the room. Their whispers hushed as Poirot cleared his throat. "Miss Amos," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "We have gathered here to bring to a close the affair of the Sapphire Star, a gem of beauty and tragedy, whose allure has drawn forth the darkest impulses of the human heart. The theft of this jewel, the whispers of its curse, the secrets hidden within the walls of Ashford Manor, all these threads, they converge here, in this moment, to be unraveled by Hercule Poirot." He paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking softly against the floor, his hands clasped behind his back. "Let us begin, as always, with the facts. The Sapphire Star was stolen during the gala, in a moment of darkness when the lights failed. A blackout, perfectly timed, allowed the thief to act. But this was no mere theft, no impulsive act of greed, none. It was a plan most meticulous, woven with care, designed to deceive and distract. And yet, the thief did not anticipate the little gray cells of Poirot. The room was silent, every eye fixed on him. Lady Ashford's fingers tightened around her handkerchief, and Mr. Baxter shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to the door. Poirot continued, his tone measured but relentless. The theft was but the first act in a drama of greater ambition. The Sapphire Star, with its legend of a curse, was not stolen for wealth alone. No, there was a purpose deeper, more profound, a desire to break the curse, to return the gem to its origins, to right an ancient wrong. But to understand this, we must retrace our steps, examine the clues, and see the truth that lies beneath. Poirot turned to face the clockmaker, Mr. Harrow, whose pale face seemed to grow paler still. "Monsieur Harrow, your role in this affair was most curious. The clock you crafted for the gala, it stopped at the precise moment of the theft, 11 minutes past 10. A coincidence? Perhaps. None. Poirot does not believe in coincidences. Within that clock, we found a fragment of sapphire, a clue that pointed to your knowledge of the gem's movements. You claimed it was a mere decorative piece, but your nervous demeanor betrayed you. You knew more than you admitted, did you not? Harrow stammered, his hands trembling. I only crafted the clock, Monsieur Poirot. I had no part in the theft. Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. Patience, monsieur. We shall return to you. For now, let us consider the hidden passageway. Discovered in the manor, a passage known to few but used by the thief to escape with the gem. This passage, it led to the library, where I found a journal detailing the Sapphire Star's origins at temple in India. Guarded by a secretive order, this journal, it was no accident that it was left for me to find. Someone wished for Poirot to know the truth, to follow the trail to the ruins. He turned to Monsieur Dubious, the diplomat, whose cool composure had begun to crack. Monsieur Dubious, you spoke of your ties to the temple's descendants, of their desire to reclaim the Sapphire Star. You claimed it was your duty to see it returned. Yet you fled through the library's hidden shelves when confronted. Why, if your motives were pure? Why the secrecy, the deception? Dubious straightened, his voice steady but strained. I acted for my people, Monsieur Poirot. The gem was stolen from us long ago. I sought only to restore it. Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. Perhaps, but your actions, they were not those of an innocent man. You hired a thief, a shadowy figure we encountered in the ruins, to retrieve the gem. And yet, you were not the mastermind. No, you were but a pawn in a larger game. A gasp rippled through the room. Miss Wentworth, her lips painted a vivid crimson, leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Monsieur Poirot, surely you don't suggest one of us orchestrated this entire affair? Poirot smiled faintly, a gleam in his eye. Mademoiselle Wentworth, your charm is formidable, but it does not obscure the truth. You, too, had motives, your debts, your desire for a life of luxury, beyond your means, but you lacked the cunning to devise such a plan. No, the true mastermind was one who understood the manor, its secrets, its people, one who could manipulate events from the shadows. He turned to Lady Ashford, whose face had grown ashen. Madam, you spoke of the curse, of your fear that it was real. You believed the Sapphire Star brought misfortune to all who possessed it, and yet, you hosted the gala, you displayed the gem. Knowing its history, why was it to draw out the thief, or to rid yourself of the curse's shadow? Lady Ashford's voice trembled. I only wished to share its beauty, to prove the curse was mere superstition. I never imagined it would lead to this. Poirot nodded, his expression softening. I believe you. Madam, your fear was genuine, but it was exploited by another. Let us now turn to the relic, the ceremonial dagger found in the ruins. It was said to bind the gem's power, to seal the curse. Its discovery was no accident. It was meant to distract, to mislead. And the fake gem, planted by the jeweler, Monsieur Baxter, was yet another deception. Baxter's shoulders slumped, his voice hoarse. I confessed, Monsieur Poirot. I worked for Lord Varnum, the collector. He promised me wealth beyond imagining if I helped him secure the Sapphire Star. We, Monsieur Baxter, Poirot said, his tone sharp. And Lord Varnum, he was the architect of the scheme. His obsession with the Sapphire Star, with its supposed power to grant eternal life, drove him to orchestrate the theft, to use the curse's legend as a tool to manipulate. But he underestimated Poirot. Poirot reached into his jacket and produced the velvet pouch, holding it aloft, the Sapphire Star. It is here. I retrieved it from Lord Varnum's estate, outwitting his guards and his traps. But the question remains why? Why such lengths for a gem? The answer lies not in its value, but in its meaning. The curse. It was not supernatural, but a story. A warning to protect the gem from those who would exploit it. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. The true purpose of the theft was to return the Sapphire Star to its rightful place, to the temple from which it was taken. Monsieur Dubious, your people's claim was just But your methods were flawed. The thief you hired, the distractions you staged, they were unnecessary, for Poirot has seen the truth, and he will ensure justice is done." He turned to the assembly, his voice rising with conviction. "The Sapphire Star will be returned to the temple under the supervision of its descendants. The curse, it is no more, it was but a tale, magnified by greed and fear. The manor is free, and those who sought to profit from this affair will face the consequences of their actions." Poirot's gaze swept the room, lingering on each face. "Monsieur Baxter, you will answer for your role in the conspiracy. Monsieur Dubious, your intentions may have been noble, but your actions were criminal. Monsieur Harrow, your knowledge of the clock's secrets implicates you as an accomplice. Mademoiselle Wentworth, your greed led you to turn a blind eye to the truth. And Monsieur Grayson, your loyalty to the manor was commendable, but your silence protected the guilty." He stepped back, his hands clasped once more. "The affair of the Sapphire Star is concluded. Justice will be served, not by vengeance, but by restoration. The gem will return to its home, and the shadows that plagued Ashford Manor will fade." Lady Ashford rose, tears in her eyes. "Monsieur Poirot, you have saved us all. How can I ever thank you?" Poirot bowed slightly, a faint smile on his lips. "Madam, it is enough that the truth has been revealed. Now, if you will excuse me, I shall retire to enjoy a tisane and reflect on the follies of human greed." As the guests dispersed, some in relief, others in shame, Captain Hastings approached, his expression one of awe. "Poirot, you've done it again. How did you know?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Mon ami, it is the little gray cells. They see what others do not, and they never fail." Later that evening, Poirot sat alone in the manor's quiet parlor, a steaming cup of tisane in his hand. The Sapphire Star had been entrusted to a representative of the temple, a quiet scholar who had arrived with little fanfare to reclaim the gem. The manor felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. Its opulent halls no longer shadowed by the curse's legend. Poirot sipped his tisane, savoring the warmth, his mind at ease. He thought of the suspects, each driven by their own desires, greed, duty, fear, ambition. The Sapphire Star had been a mirror, reflecting their weaknesses, their humanity, and yet it was also a symbol of hope, of restoration, of a wrong made right. Poirot had seen to it that the gem would no longer be a source of strife, but a relic, returned to its sacred place. As the fire crackled in the hearth, Poirot leaned back, his eyes half closed. The case had tested him, challenged his intellect, but he had prevailed, as he always did. The world, with all its chaos and beauty, continued to turn, and Hercule Poirot, with his little gray cells, would always be there to bring order to its mysteries. He raised his cup in a silent toast to justice, to truth, and to the enduring power of the mind. The affair of the Sapphire Star was closed, and Poirot was content. The following morning, Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart Ashford Manor. The air was crisp, the sky a brilliant blue, as if the manor itself had shaken off the gloom of the past weeks. Lady Ashford stood at the entrance, her expression one of gratitude and relief. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice steady now, "you have given us peace. The Sapphire Star is where it belongs, and the manor is free of its shadow." Poirot inclined his head. "Madam, it is my duty and my pleasure to restore order where there is chaos. I wish you well." As they climbed into the waiting car, Hastings glanced at Poirot, a grin on his face. "Another case solved, eh, Poirot? What's next?" Poirot chuckled softly. "Mon cher Hastings, the world is full of mysteries, and Poirot will be ready for them. But first, I think, a visit to London and perhaps a new pair of gloves. One must maintain appearances, n'est-ce pas?" The car rolled down the drive, leaving Ashford Manor behind, its secrets laid bare, its curse dispelled. For Hercule Poirot, it was but another chapter in a life dedicated to the pursuit of truth, a pursuit that would never end.